farm worker with bite wounds to the neck and body. It is alleged that he went into the lion enclosure and was attacked by a lioness. He was declared dead on the scene and an inquest is being investigated.
And India's new parliament is holding its first session today since the general election that saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi return to office for a third term, but with a significantly reduced majority. The BBC's Samira Hussain reports.
As Mr. Modi walked towards the podium to take his oath as a member of parliament, members of the opposition held up copies of India's constitution. A jibe at the Prime Minister for what the leader of the Indian National Congress, Rahul Gandhi, refers to as his disregard for the fundamental principles of the country. This is uncharted territory for the third-term Prime Minister, who has never had to deal with a coalition government. This new session of Parliament is likely to be combative, as the opposition is emboldened by their recent electoral wins.
The top story at 3 o'clock, KZN's newly appointed Public Works MEC says he plans to establish a task team to fight against the construction mafia in that province. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
In your sports this hour, Proteas confident with positive semi-finals showing. Mokoena cashes in millions in bonuses at Sundowns last season, and Lyles won 100 meter at US trials to qualify for the Paris Olympics. I'll have more on this at 3:30.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I trust you had a good weekend. I can tell you now, all the things we spoke about this weekend, besides watching lots of sport, I'm talking about the rugby team, the national team and the Bulls, and watch cricket as well and other things. The big issue really has been, when will the cabinet be announced and what's the latest regarding the government of national unity? And I would think that sense will carry over into today, tomorrow, and perhaps for the rest of the week. So welcome to the National Pulse. My name is Ashraf Garda. Great to have you as part of the National Pulse. And always, let me throw a question to you. What for you today moves the National Pulse? What are the biggest issues in the country and globally that we need to cover on the National Pulse today. As always, you can call in 086 000 2032. Love first-time callers, and I want younger people as well. It's Youth Month. We must get younger people in to speak for the very first time. WhatsApp, text or voice note, regulars can call in as well. Let me just assure you, it's 0614 104 107, 0614 104 107. You can also tweet us, you know that, on the X platform, SFM Radio, as well as on Facebook. And we know every week we have regulars who like, hey, I'm listening in, and that's where I am. So let's see who's going to give us a shout out today, particularly if you send pictures of where you are. That's just great if you do that. Right. We're going to talk about many things, including navigating the NGU, what's happened regarding over 1,300 Hajj pilgrims who've died because of heat, I understand, in the Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. We'll talk about that. Understanding Orania and the protests in Kenya. Do you know much about that? And as we talk, things will develop. So we'll talk about issues in Gauteng in terms of that cabinet, if I can call it that, and many other things. Because as you know, on the National Pulse, things do not stay the same. They shift every 15 minutes. They shift every hour. And we need to cover all of those things. Let me get going with the That's My Point feature, right? So a person at a function that I met up spoke to me about his fear for, public speaking. And literally said, I just don't have confidence for that. But, it's easy for me to dismiss it saying, you have no confidence because, for me, public speaking comes pretty naturally. And, that's the reality, isn't it? For all of us, some things come naturally and we can do that quickly and easily. But for many of us, many things do not come naturally. We're out of our comfort zone. We really struggle. We're really on the wrong side of what it is. And it's very difficult to snap out. And, simply saying, well, just believe in yourself. Really, that's just not on. Because if we simply said believe in yourself, things will come right. Well, that's like saying run the comrades and believe you're going to win and everybody will win the comrades. It just doesn't work like that. So you have to give more. So what do you do when someone tells you, you know what, I've just lost confidence? What do you do? What do you do when you yourself tell yourself I've lost confidence? How do you snap out of it? It's not a switch on, switch off. It's not a light switch that you can do in just one moment. It needs a whole lot more. So, two things. Besides the field that you need to excel in, obviously there I would think you must speak to an expert. For example, you don't go to Parliament if you're a newly appointed MP lacking confidence and get the and get the advice of a baker or a used car salesman. Is just not going to work. But beyond that part, which is the technical aspect, when you're struggling with confidence, as we all do sometimes, and we really, including me, okay, I think what you must do, what you can do is think about the many people people on social media, the many people who've said things about you in affirmations. They speak glowingly about how you've impacted them. And I'll tell you what, save those affirmations on your WhatsApp or whatever, right? And read them. And then you'll realize that you may lack in confidence now, but there are many, many people that truly, truly believe in you. Okay. And that goes back to my point, which is, building confidence when you've lost confidence is not a switch on, switch off, but it is something you need to build with one action at a time, or in this case, maybe one word at a time. Well, that's my point. What's yours?
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Feel free to comment on my point and whether you have a point on how do you build confidence when you lose confidence. I certainly want to know. And you know the story, you got all the numbers. You must save those numbers permanently, right? Okay, we're going to get on to lots of different issues we need to talk about. Perhaps one of the issues that we need to understand is what's really going on regarding our government of national unity and therefore the formation of our cabinet. We're still waiting. I sort of guessed it was going to be Sunday night. I was told yesterday that it was going to happen on Friday night. That was last week, Friday night. We do know Gauteng's executive was set to be named publicly. We know that yesterday. And then they were told, or the premier was told, hold it. Okay. So let's understand what's really going on. Dr. Levi Indo is with me, who's a political analyst from the Tshwane University of Technology. Dr. Indo, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse. Do I have you there?
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the listeners at home. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Right, let's get cracking with time, because time is a huge issue in terms of South Africa. We've had elections on May 29th. We still do not have an executive, right? What do you understand by that?
Well, I think it's a very frustrating situation indeed that we do not have an executive, but we know the reasons why. There are negotiations going on about the government of national unity. At the same time, there are other parties that appear to be interested in the government of national unity. Some are gradually and slowly going in to join the government of national unity. My sense is that there are discussions that are going on about the composition of government. They create a lot of anxiety on our part, but also at the same time, I think the delays could be informed by the fact that they could be trying their best to ensure that whatever product they come up with, it's on a very, very firm foundation, so that the issues of governance and stability should be maintained in government.
Well, it's interesting, and and others may debate it, and I'll still say this, that there are many parties, there are 10 parties now that make up the GNU, but there are 2 parties that effectively are the dominant parties, which would be the ANC and the DA, right? And for those who thought that one of the parties, in this case the ANC, would just sort of drop down and just appease the DA to come on board. I mean, clearly this has proven that's not the case. The fact that there's delays means there's hard negotiation from, in this case, both sides, isn't it?
Well, yes, and I think it's something that could be a bit frustrating for most of us who are eagerly waiting to get the executive. But I think it's also important to note that this is the era or the period of negotiations, and at the end of the day, the president has to make that final decision. My sense is that we should avoid a situation where, because we're talking about the government of national unity and parties cooperating, the constitution is not suspended. So we should always do whatever we do within the confines of the constitution. Yes, indeed, the president can consult, the president can get different views, but at the same time, he has got constitutional powers to, at the end of the day, come up with government, and he must also show leadership that at some point he should say, consultations took place, I've thoroughly consulted, but because I've got executive powers given to me by the Constitution, this is the right time to take such decisions.
But I mean, on the other hand, clearly one would look at examples of the Mandela examples. If you're too slow, then you're rather indecisive. But if you're too hasty and you make bad decisions, and that's not showing leadership. I mean, the key is to understand how long and when to act, isn't it?
Indeed. I think what is primary is that the president would want to demonstrate to all of us that there has been thorough consultation. He has listened to many people, but at the end of the day, whatever decision that is taken will be based on the fact that there was thorough consultation. And unfortunately, whatever decision you take, you can't please everyone. But at the end of the day, we want government to function. We want these departments to have political heads so that South Africa could be back on track.
Do you have a sense of, we are speculating, but do you have a sense of what exactly is the logjam? What's causing the logjam here?
The delay could be caused by the fact that politicians are now focusing on themselves, in the sense that the focus is on positions, and some might also be making demands that could not be acceded to by other parties. But that is a normal exercise. When you are bargaining, you might start from a hard point of view, and as time goes, you might also relax. But at this point, politicians are eagerly looking for deployments, to be given responsibilities where they can make a difference, but also at the same time where they know that they're also going to benefit as individuals.
Okay, again, lots of speculation about where the problem is. Is it about certain key positions? Is it about the numbers of, cabinet ministers in parliament? Is it the deputy president issue? Do you know anything that could be the huge problems here? Because clearly it would be in the interest of all parties to get the business of government working. And the fact that it's not suggests that the problems are there.
Not exactly. But some of the issues that are being discussed are issues that relate to how coalitions this GNU is supposed to function. How are they going to deal with disputes? How are they going to deal with matters where there should be mediation? And all the issues that relate to the functioning of the GNU. Of course, there could be issues that relate to specific ministries, deputy presidency, and so on and so on. But at the same time, you might have a situation where some parties might be starting to put demands. Some will say they're unrealistic, but there's a huge possibility that some parties could actually be doing exactly that.
Okay. Just the last thing before we wrap up then. At this point in time, what have you learnt about the GNU that either augurs well or does not augur well for the future? You got about a minute to answer that.
Well, I think what we need to learn about GNU is the fact that all parties are given an opportunity to participate in government. They are given an opportunity to make a difference where they can. But the unfortunate part is that at some point, some parties might not be available to serve, and some parties might get into this GNU with ulterior motives or with hidden agendas, and that is a potential to negatively affect the functioning of government.
And that's where we can leave you. Dr. Levi Ndo, who's a political analyst from the Tshwane University of Technology. Thanks for being on the National Pulse. You also can be on the National Pulse. We're going to talk about Hajj pilgrims dying because of allegedly, heat stroke. We'll talk about that in just a moment. I've asked the question about confidence and how do you build confidence when you lose it, right? Zanele says a person who really helped me to boost my confidence is DJ Cebu. Learning from him, you developed that I won't die for trying. I think that's so significant and interesting. We had listen to the podcast of my conversation with Cebu, was it last week or week before? When we talked about podcasts right after this.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a first home finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
The Arctic and Antarctic are the greatest and least known wildernesses of all. Magical worlds inhabited by the most bizarre and hardy creatures on Earth. David Attenborough travels to the end of the Earth, taking viewers on an extraordinary journey across all 4 seasons in the polar regions of our planet, North and South. Prey and hunter are caught up in the battle of survival. Meet terrifying sea spiders and woodlice the size of dinner plates, polar bears, seabirds, penguins and orcas, and learn how global warming is threatening this fragile ecosystem. Channel your inner explorer with Frozen Planet, Sundays at 6:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
We understand that Zizi Kodra, a former cabinet minister himself, of course, is going to be sworn in as an MP tomorrow. But he does face charges. On the record, he's appeared in court. Why is he still going to represent the ANC in Parliament?
Well, that's a matter that is currently under discussion. And at this point, I'll be hesitant to speak on this matter until such a time that the matter is clarified. But the step-aside policy of the ANC doesn't suggest that a person cannot serve as a backbencher, but a person cannot serve as a senior leader in the public domain. But as I say, this is uncharted waters, and the matter is receiving attention.
Mahlengi Bengu Motseri is the national spokesperson of the African National Congress.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m.
Right, make a note of this now. 37-year-old Teboka got a really great deal on his car insurance premium from Outsurance. He pays 762 rands per month to insure his white 2018 Ford Figo Ambiente. He now has an extra cash every month to go out for a meal with his friends, his chommies. Get an Outsurance quote today. SMS OUT to 30754, and out is OUT, to 30754. License, insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, you may be aware that the Hajj pilgrimage, the Muslim Hajj pilgrimage is over. People have come back home. I think in South Africa, most of these, the Hajjis or the Hujjaj, as they would call them, in plural, would have arrived over the weekend. That's the one aspect, okay, and hopefully spiritually enriched. The other is the fact that we understand over 1,300 people who've undertaken this pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia have not returned home because they've died, mainly, I understand, through issues around heat. Let's find out more about that with Shaheen Iswap, who's a board member of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council. That's SAHUK. Shaheen, appreciate your time live on the National Pulse. Is certainly what you are.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Ashraf, and good afternoon to everybody in studio and to your guests out there on the airwaves.
Much appreciated. Shaheen, let's talk about this. So I said 1,300 people have died. I understand it is primarily because of heat wave or heat stroke of some form?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the peak of the summer months is smack bang in the middle of the Hajj period. And as a result, temperatures would soar to almost 50 degrees during the daylight hours. The sadness, unfortunately, around what had transpired is as a result of these people who are unauthorized Hajj pilgrims, a majority of which were unauthorized Hajj pilgrims, either got into the kingdom through fraudulent means or otherwise, through means that, did not permit them to be on Hajj. What the result, obviously, is that there were no buses allocated to them or no modes of transport allocated to them, and they then had to take, long journeys by foot. Now, doing that, in the excessive heat, unfortunately, resulted in them succumbing.
Okay, so let me understand this. I mean, I know, myself having been in the Hajj, I think 2017, so about 6-7 years ago, you have to be authorized. We work through SAHUK and you're a leading member of SAHUK. So how do you actually have a situation of authorized and unauthorized pilgrims?
Well, I think in recent days, you've also seen, for example, the government of Egypt coming out saying that they're going to be suspending 15 or 16 operators out there. And that is as a result of them issuing what would be termed as tourist visas for these people to go for pilgrimage, which is totally out of sync with the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, who has basically indicated only people who are authorized or carrying a valid Hajj visa, is allowed to come for Hajj. We've seen in the past that, we used to have 2.5 to 2.7 million people. This year, they've curtailed it to about 1.85 million people. And as a result of that, trying to implement new processes and structures to keep everybody safe and sound and, in good health. Sadly, people prey on the vulnerable, and people who want to go to the kingdom would obviously utilize these means. And when we say unauthorized means, they get smuggled in, from different parts of Saudi Arabia, either by bus or by taxi, or by car or by truck. to get them to the holy sites. Sorry, Ashraf, this is one of the key things that the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah is trying to curtail and trying to sort of put their thumb on in order to make sure that there's no illegals in there, in order for everyone who is authorized, to have a good Hajj, good Hajj journey.
So we're coming on to news time. So very quickly, I mean, it sounds such a contradiction, isn't it? These people are going to pray for this pilgrimage of a lifetime, and in doing so, they themselves or certain tour operators would commit effectively a crime to be able to get them there.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, you find the situation in many aspects of life. People taking advantage of the vulnerable and trying to do that. All that being said, it was their time to pass on in accordance to what we believe. But at the end of the day, one must not take away from the fact that, people have preyed on the vulnerable.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's do this. We're going to go for a news break in just a moment, and then we'll pick up the conversation further in a moment. Chatting to Shaheen Essop, because I think many people have views about just the issues of the healthcare, besides the legality or the illegality of these pilgrims, just what actually happens to them, how protected are they? But first things first, let's get the news headlines. It's 3:30. Here's Madupi.
Garda. The top in your headlines this hour, the Joburg Water says that stationary and mobile water tankers will be deployed to areas which may be affected by the maintenance operations at the Aikenhof pump station from 7 o'clock tonight. KZN's newly appointed Public Works MEC says he plans to establish a task team to fight against the construction mafia in the province. And the Medicines Control Association of Zimbabwe has revealed that 3 pharmaceutical companies have started manufacturing cannabis medicines 5 years after the country licensed 60 cannabis farmers. Details of these and other stories coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 westbound in Eldorado Park has delays near Golden Highway exit, and Pretoria Avenue in Sandton is closed between Catherine Street and Rivonia Road due to work being done by Johannesburg Water. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 is roadworks with major upgrade works between Spaghetti Junction and the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound is closed at the N2 highway due to protest action in the area, and the R300 northbound has protest action reported between the M7 Jakes Hadwell Drive and Stock Road. The road has subsequently been closed. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, continuing our conversation with Shaheen Essop, who's the board member of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council. Shaheen, let's talk about, so 1,300 plus people have died. Would you say then categorically that in fact they're all related to the issues, besides the issues of legality and illegality, that they all died because of heat issues, or were there other factors too?
No, definitely no other factors involved, only heat exhaustion and dehydration that has actually caused that. The South African Hajj and Umrah Council advocates on an annual basis, when we in the Kingdom, that none of our South African pilgrims must actually attempt to do a walking Hajj as a result of this. We're not exposed to those excessive, temperatures in South Africa, and as a result, the warnings that we mete out, together with our medical teams, just to make sure that the comfort of the pilgrim at the time, when it is necessary for them to supplicate to the Almighty, they're in their full senses and in good health. So these are the kinds of warnings, among others, that we would impart and, participate in with our pilgrims.
Perhaps a good chance, in the few minutes we have remaining, to talk about the relationship then between, say, the umbrella body in South Africa, SAHUK, and how you coordinate issues with Saudi Arabia regarding Hajj, because I would think other countries would do something very, very similar, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, we have what we call the Office of the Hajj Mission. Now, the South African Hajj and Umrah Council in the Kingdom is known as the Hajj Mission, and complete and total recognition from the Ministry of Hajj and its sub-affiliates and, the Muassasa or the Tawafa companies that look after the pilgrims on the ground for the 5 days. We've seen in the recent, weeks or in the recent days that passed, South Africa won what is known as the Labatum Award, and this is the second year in a row as a result of our cooperation, our, working with them, our understanding of their processes and systems, and making sure that we comply with everything that we need to for the benefit of the pilgrim that departs from South Africa.
And how many South Africans perform the Hajj this year?
2,500, and that's based on the number of Muslim population in our country on the basis of 1,000 pilgrims per 1 million Muslims.
Okay, so you have the umbrella body, which is your body, Sahuk, right? And then you also have traditional tour operators, which would be, others would have tour operators going on tourism trips around the world, but these tour operators go specifically for the Hajj pilgrimage, right? What's the relationship between one and the other to ensure that ultimately the pilgrims themselves, South Africans in this case, are protected and given what they've paid for and what they expect?
Well, this is exactly why we have this body, and this body was created to ensure that there's accreditation of pilgrim operators that take people for Hajj, to make sure that there are no fly-by-night structures where the pilgrims will be fleeced or the pilgrims will not get what they paid for in terms of the contracting structure. We put codes of conduct in place, we put certain minimum requirements in place in order to ensure the well-being of the pilgrim in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as prior to their departure from here.
I see two South Africans, my understanding, have passed on, whether they're linked to the heat, I mean, you can tell me, and they're both related. Ibrahim Khan was 27 years old, and Shireen Khan, his mum, was 59 years old, right? I mean, it does sort of tell you that the trip itself is particularly arduous, isn't it, at the easiest of times? In that case, it's still difficult.
To a great extent, yes, and just to correct you, we've had a total of 5 South African deaths in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, 2 of them in Medina before Hajj, and Ibrahim and another lady from Cape Town, Marhuma Sugra Muhammad, who had passed away, just on the 8th of Zul-Hijjah, which is the day that the 5 days start. Very, very sad situation with the Khan family. The son passed away on the 8th. The mother passed away a day or two after returning from Arafah. So again, we believe that this is the will of the Almighty, but it's not an easy journey. Ashraf, you do know that. Especially for people who are infirmed or people who have a medical condition, and more importantly for the elderly and for those that are of age. It can't be an easy journey at all.
Here's the last thing: if there's one thing, based upon your experience of the Hajj over many, many years, Shaheen, if there's one thing you would like to change in the relationship between Sahuk and the Hajj authorities and Sahuk and the people of South Africa, what would you change?
Well, I think that we've grown closer and closer together. Accolades from the pilgrims that have come back every year indicating the acceptance of Sahuk as an administrative and regulatory body. I do think what South Africa needs is a bigger quota, and I think that will alleviate a tremendous amount of pain and a tremendous amount of anxiety for the people on the ground. And we're hoping, with the assistance of the Almighty, to try and convince the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that due to our minority status in this country, we should be looked upon with a more, softer eye. And possibly get a bigger quota.
Okay, you say bigger quota, 2,500 South Africans travel annually. What's the waiting list in terms of from time of first application to actual acceptance and undertaking the Hajj journey on average?
In 7 years. Because of COVID and, no Hajj taking place for 2 years, it set us back another 3 years. So we've got about a 10-year waiting list. But I have to say that is not out of line with many countries around the world. Malaysia, for example, and I cite that because, very similar structure to ours, have a 140-year waiting list, despite a quota of 27,000. So
Okay.
it's comparing apples to apples. South Africa, I think, could do with a quota of 5,000, and I do think that will be adequately consumed.
Okay, and that's where we're going to leave it, Shaheen Issop. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. A board member of the South African Hajj and Umrah Council. By the way, have you been for the Hajj this year, for example, or you have family who's been on the Hajj? I certainly was there 7 years ago. If you have and you've had experiences around undertaking the Hajj on the one hand, but on the other hand, the tremendous testing, the difficulties, severe heat, 50 plus Celsius, I understand. Perhaps share your stories. I know many people just returning from the pilgrimage now. WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. Otherwise to call in 086 000 2032. I'll take your calls on confidence and other things in a moment.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the two compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, let's get some calls. By the way, regarding the youth takeover, please be a part of the show. I mean, we've got people inviting on Thursday. Is that right? Thursday, Friday, 27th, 28th. It'd be great if you're a part of it. So just, the story, just send out a WhatsApp right away so that you could sit in, not just sit in, you'd be co-hosting the show with me. But it's up to you. You know the story. Make that pitch. It's really very much up to you, okay, if you really want it desperately enough. Confidence is a key. Errol wants to talk about that. Hi, Errol. Errol, hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
I certainly can. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I remember you sang to me on my birthday, but anyway, what I want to say is well done to the Proteas. But talking about confidence, I was a batsman in the 60s and the 70s for a top Joburg club. I was actually top of the averages. And then all of a sudden, I hit a slump. About 3 or 4 balls. I made about 4 or 5 scores of about 2-0, 2. I was really getting depressed and losing confidence in myself. And a friend came up to me and he said, "What's the matter, Errol? You look down and out." I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to give this game up." But he said to me, "Those balls that got you out were buttes. They could have got any batsman in the world out, even Graham Pollock or Don Bradman." He said, just think of the good things you've done. And that after that, I started getting confidence in myself, and my cricket really improved. And it's all about confidence, yeah.
Well, there you are. Thanks for that call, Errol. I think that suggests exactly what I've been talking about, that, when you're down and you're lacking confidence, and we all lack it in different things, okay, what you need is that one friend, that one chummy, to come up to you and say, "Hey, remember this." And I mean, that's what Errol's friend told me, like, remember what you've done, and therefore move from a duck to something more special. But I mean, that applies to just about every activity in the world. You do need to hold on to your affirmations when you have tough moments, as indeed you would have tough moments. Let's get to the tough moments of the cabinet.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and your team, Jumbo Africa. Happy Monday. Ashraf, it was a long week. How long we've been waiting for President to release a new cabinet? Since weekend, they keep saying Sunday, midnight, nothing. When we wake up today, President will release after 2. It is 2 or after 2 years. President, come on. We want service delivery. We don't want loss. We want jobs. Come on, release your cabinet. We know ANC when it comes to appoint, they go straight to SASA to take all people who don't account. We are waiting for your cabinet. Please. Your previous term, you've been promised us you will reshuffle. You never done so. Please release your cabinet. We are waiting for your cabinet. Please. It's all we ask. We don't want a lot, and we want jobs. We are waiting for your cabinet. Please. It's Percy in Matlasan.
Okay, Percy, but I'll tell you what. I mean, I got what you're saying. I really thought that by the weekend, by Sunday night, we would have it. Having said that, I think one must also appreciate that this is not a normal government that we're talking about. It's very different, which means there's a lot more. Well, put it this way. Have you got 4 family members deciding where to go on a Sunday off because you've got time off, and decide whether you're going to a movie, to a picnic, or you're going to visit family members, or you're going to just go shopping, and you try and work out between the 4 members of the family how you're going to agree on that? That really is the type of negotiation that takes place. So I think, honestly, if 3 or 4 days extra gets us what we really need, then I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Okay, here's another thought on the GNU.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Garda. Thank you for giving us updates every day for this thing. This is Mteto speaking in Port Shepton. Yeah, I want to say I trust this government of GNU is the best government because all the parties will be included there. They are going to express their views and their opinion together in the same parliament. Thank you, Ashraf Garda.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I'll appreciate it. Well, it's me and my team that makes up the National Pulse, and our job is to keep fingers on the pulse every single day to give you exactly what you require. We'll play some further voice notes in a few minutes' time as soon as we get a chance. And there's some interesting comments from... you may remember him, Tito Mboweni. Well, he has some thoughts on the GNU. Not quite now. You're going to listen out to that just now. Let's, however, talk about one of the biggest issues that's developed over the last few days, that of Orania. Now, it came up in conversation because we understand the Freedom Front Plus leader, Peter Groenewald, apparently spoke to the ANC regarding the GNU and said one of the conditions would be to recognize Orania. So what does that mean? Because I would have thought in some degree Orania only exists because he's been recognized from day one. So where's the nuances? What's the difference? Really understanding Orania is what we're doing right now. US straight on with me, who's the spokesperson for Orania. You just appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a good theme for us to speak about. It's something that obviously is something that we are happy about, and we would like to share some of the nuances about this historic agreement that will be signed.
Okay, so let's get to that first. What did the Freedom Front Plus leader, what is he requested of the ANC?
Yes, so I think a common misconception is that this agreement is something that is on a national level as part as the Government of National Unity's formation, and that the FF Plus's entry to that government set this requirement of Orania being recognized. That is not the case. This agreement follows a historic pattern from the late 80s, early 90s, where an institution called the Volksstaatsraad was in conversation with the ANC as they came into power and also into the early 2000s. So what they originally said is they obviously the FF Plus worked for the Accord on Afrikaner self-determination, the FF Plus and other groups, and later on the Wally Moosa Declaration followed that, where Wally Moosa in his role as the Minister of Constitutional Development said, well, the pursuit for Afrikaner self-determination is a legitimate pursuit and so on, based on cultural things and language and religion and shared culture. So that is kind of the context. And then in the year 2000, Orania had a court case with the state about being moved into Thembalethu municipality when the new wall-to-wall municipal system started. And we settled that case by giving Orania a unique status. But that was on a very, very basic level, and we always look to expand that a bit. And then on provincial government level, the FF Plus and the ANC made an agreement. The agreement was that the ANC wanted a stable small party in the Northern Cape, as the ANC put it, to help them to stay in control of the provincial legislature and also to keep the chairperson seat. And part of that agreement on provincial level was that Orania's municipal status was just reconfirmed, and that Orania was confirmed as a cultural zone for Afrikaners in relation to some of that historical context that I gave, and also as a special economic zone. So that is kind of the nuance. It's an old agreement with a lot of history, a lot of good faith relationships that's been built over the years. And multiple conversations, multiple negotiations, and now it's kind of just the formal part following that. But that is the product of a provincial level conversation and not part of the
So let's recap very quickly, just in bullet points, right? What was the status of Orania in 1994?
In 1994, Orania was just a de facto town that existed since 1991. We started delivering our own services, doing everything locally with our own funds. So de facto, we had our own status.
Okay, that was then,
but there
right?
was no recognition for that. That came in the year 2000. So in the year 2000, we got after the court case, we got formal recognition on a small scale, and that expanded now to a bit of a larger scale recognition. Where Orania has a specific cultural zone, a specific economic zone, and have our own municipal status in terms of the overlay zone.
So I may have missed something. So it's specific cultural zone with its own municipal status. Are you saying that's what it is now, or that's what you still want? What more do you want?
That is the agreement that we have with the provincial role players. So this is a government to government agreement. It's obviously two small governments. It's the government of Orania, which is a local government, and the government of the Northern Cape, which is the provincial role players with the different political parties involved there. And that is the status to be confirmed in this document that we will sign.
To be confirmed. So that would reflect the upgrade.
Yes. So I think it's more. I think it's much rather a confirmation of realities that's been standing for a long time on paper than it is kind of some big new or upgrade, as you put it just now. It is a confirmation of things that's been the case, de facto reality for a long time.
I think the big question many people ask is are you South Africans?
Yes, we are South Africans. In the first place, geographically, we are part of South Africa. We have more than one identity, and we as Afrikaners want a home. We want a place that we can live out our culture. We are cultural people. We are religious people. So yes, South Africa is we are part of the geographical location of South Africa. We fall under the laws of the country and so on. But we have a right to be Afrikaners, to live out our culture, and to build a home for ourselves.
I want to pick up on that, obeying the laws of the country and then living out your culture, the Afrikaner culture, which we'll do right after this.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investments within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Experience Food Lovers Market's unbeatable value with a 7 kg potato pocket, a butternut pocket, an orange pocket, a 3 kg onion bag, and a 3 kg carrot bag for 199 Rand per combo. A 1 kg pack of Food Lovers lean beef mince for 79.99, and 2 1-litre bottles of Fresco Liva blended olive oil for 100 Rand. Valid until this Sunday at Food Lovers Market. It's in the experience.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Ryan, we continue chatting to US Stradham, who's the spokesperson for Oranje. So, yes, we spoke about the law and protecting or living out your Afrikaner culture. So what is your thoughts, or give me your position on this? Because that's where the big argument has been. Nobody suggests you can't have your culture just as strongly as you can have a Zulu culture or a Hindu or a Jewish or a Muslim culture, right? The question is that culture based on religious lines? In this case, not just religious, racial lines. Let's get that right. Is that culture based on religious lines? So on the one hand, but then on racial lines more specifically.
Yes. Definitely, I think there's no doubt about it that God created the cultures of the world, and that culture is a product of His creation. We in Oranje believe, that culture is something created, and that's why we have a right to live that out. And the traditional practices that we have as Afrikaners have is heavily influenced by Christianity. I think one of the ways that it is showcased is some of the liaison that we do, the relationships that we have with traditional communities, for example, such as the Mnyameni community in the Eastern Cape, which is a traditional community which are heavily invested in some of the ideas and recipes that we have for certain community level problems and solutions that we've created, and the relationships that we've built with the Barulong people close to Bloemfontein and the Amabele people close to Maclear. So I think our religious beliefs is something that led to our cultural practices, but we also find, that it is a commonality between us and other similar cultural communities around the country.
Okay, I hear that. Here's the more important one then. In expressing your religious and your cultural expression, right? Is it race-based? That means I'm not talking about the collaboration agreements. For example, can I come if I choose to embrace the Afrikaner culture, right? Can I then visit or live or work or all three in Oranje?
Well, let me put it firstly. Anyone can visit Oranje. People from all around the country visit Oranje on a daily basis, including the traditional communities that I referred to, but also just people coming here for business or whatever case. In Oranje, Afrikaners live and work, right? So we can. There's definitely different debates about what an Afrikaner is and so on. For us, we are a group with a shared history, a shared culture, a shared religion, and so more. Obviously, people know that as different groups migrated to what is now known as South Africa, Afrikaners have our origin as the French Huguenots, as some of the Dutch that came here, and so on. So I think we are an identifiable group, and everyone knows that, as everyone knows what a Zulu is. And so on. That's not really a secret or any major point of concern for anyone. I think the big test for cultures in South Africa is the bona fides and the good faith relations that people built. Is that something that is forced state integration, or is it something that comes from a community level where communities reach out to one another and liaise?
But you see,
so,
what I'm still not getting at is this, and I hear all the things you've said. I'm saying to you, as you quite rightfully made the point that the Afrikaner culture would be this hybrid, say, between French Huguenots or French, and then effectively Dutch people that came to South Africa, and then maybe lots of mixing in this country, right? That means it evolves over a period of time. So somebody who's not from that stock, if I can call it that, and let's say the person is let's say again I mentioned, so someone who is black, who's of a Zulu speaking background, who then embraces the Afrikaner culture because he or she is very impressed by that, who then wants to embrace that fully. Can they embrace it and therefore be a part of Oranje and live amongst the Oranians?
Okay, I'm going to answer in two phases. The first phase will be to say anyone can apply to come and live in Oranje, and case by case, the application to become a part of the community is handled in good faith, and there is no reference to race in any of our of our documents, as anyone is free to look out. The second thing that I want to say is, in the age where people, claim that anyone can associate as anything, I truly believe that even with my best intentions, I cannot become a Zulu man. I cannot magically transform into a Zulu man. I have my own set of traditions and things that I am. And just as well, I can ask, if I now start identifying with such values, would I be a beneficiary of, land expropriation or things like that? So, firstly, anyone is welcome to apply to come and live in Orania. But obviously, there's different groups in South Africa, different cultural groups, Zulus, Xhosas, Venda, Vedi, and also Afrikaners. We're also a group of people that is only have this as a home, only have Africa as a home, cannot go back to Europe as many claim. We are people of this soil.
All right, we're on to news time. Let me ask you this very quickly. I mean, you gave the example about the Zulus. I mean, I'm looking at Johnny Clegg and I'm thinking about him and how he effectively embraced the Zulu culture and became one of them. Now, you're saying, in your opinion, that's not possible, for example, right? So anyone can apply, but and we've got 30 seconds to answer this. Anyone can apply, but has anybody been accepted who's outside of that grouping, who's embraced your culture? Have they been accepted?
If you're asking if anyone who is not an Afrikaner, really with good faith moved here, or tried to move here and went through the application, I can tell you that we have no such applications. We obviously had people that tested our systems and saw if it's really so that they can apply, and we sent them the application forms. But I have never met anyone who isn't Afrikaner that really had a desire to come and live in Orania and build on this dream that we have, live in the hardship of this semi-desert environment for the sake of embracing Afrikaner culture and such.
All right,
more.
Let's wrap up let's wrap up now in 30 seconds. How does that, in your interpretation, fit in squarely with South Africa's constitution that allows freedom of movement?
I think it fits in very well. I think for two reasons. One, there is the Article 235 of the Constitution guaranteeing the right to cultural self-sufficiency. And secondly, the right to assemble and to associate and build, places like Orania. That is very well in international law and in South African law. It's a legal process. It's also a process that stood the test of time in terms of our liaison with government, our liaison with even opposing political parties, and our liaison with other traditional communities.
Let's leave it at that. You're a Stratum Orania spokesperson. We were saying maybe we should do an outside broadcast from Orania. If you say yes, we'll see what happens coming out of that. Well, here's the question to every one of us. So if not Orania, would you be keen with your own type of Orania, whatever that is? And how does that fit in with South Africa's constitution? Give me your thoughts. Let's get the news now. It's just gone 4 o'clock with Madupi.
Thanks, Ashraf. The top story is the Sawa water tankers deployed across Joburg and the task team to fight against the construction mafia. A very good afternoon. Joburg Water says stationary and mobile water tankers will be deployed to areas which may be affected by the maintenance operations at the Aikenhof pump station from 7 o'clock tonight. The bulk water entity kicked off its 37-day maintenance project in Gauteng over the weekend in an attempt to preserve the quality and integrity of its infrastructure. Residents and businesses can expect low water pressure at times while work is being conducted. Joburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala.
During this time, Johannesburg Water customers will be impacted by low pressure to no water. Johannesburg Water has made arrangements for alternative water supply, which will be in the form of stationary and roaming water tankers. Johannesburg Water systems supplied by Aikenhof include Soweto, Randburg, Rudeport, Johannesburg South and Central. For Daleside, it is Orange Farm, Ennerdale and Lowly. And Swartkoppies, it is Johannesburg Central, Parktown, Berea, Yeoville and Forest Hill.
KZN's newly appointed Public Works MEC, Martin Meyer, says he plans to establish a task team to fight against the construction mafia in the province. The construction mafia have been sabotaging private and public infrastructure projects across the country. The gangs use mafia-style tactics to hijack construction sites, demanding money or protection fees from the contractors who've been awarded tenders for the project. Briefing the media in Durban, Mayor says the days of the construction mafia in KZN are over.
This department does not negotiate with criminals. We will be engaging with my colleagues from the various different departments, as well on a local and a national level. This is a law enforcement matter that our department also plays a role in, and we will be engaging with all our colleagues to make sure that we have a strong task team that also includes other role players from the construction industry, role players from civic society, CPFs, and people on the ground.
COSATU says it is crucial that the Government of National Unity policy should be mandated by the ANC's manifesto and be guided by the Constitution. At the same time, it says that it'll help facilitate dialogue with social partners at NEDLAC towards the GNU's policy mandate. COSATU General Secretary Soli Petu.
It is imperative the Government of National Unity policy mandate be anchored on the ANC manifesto and guided by the Constitution and rule of law. The Alliance fully expects President Ramaphosa to consult it on the composition of the cabinet. COSATU congratulates former leaders of the movement who have been elected to Parliament and the provincial legislation, and trust that they will continue to wage a working-class struggle in their new deployments.
A 43-year-old game farm worker has been mauled to death by a lioness on a farm in Glen near Bloemfontein. It is alleged that Jeremataka was fixing a fence and installing a gate when the lioness attacked him yesterday. Police say the victim left his room and went straight to the enclosure. Spokesperson Lorraine Earle says Mataka's supervisor screamed to notify him that he must quickly get out as there is a female lion in the enclosure, but it was too late.
The police were called to a farm in the Glen district. They found the body of a 43-year-old farm worker with bite wounds to the neck and body. It is alleged that he went into the lion enclosure and was attacked by a lioness. He was declared dead on the scene and an inquest is being investigated.
And the Medicines Control Association of Zimbabwe has revealed that 3 pharmaceutical companies have started manufacturing cannabis medicines 5 years after the country licensed 60 cannabis farmers. Cannabis is said to have been used since as far back as 4000 BC to treat various ailments, according to ancient Chinese and African records. Some cannabis farmers are complaining of a stringent legal framework and low profits. Cannabis medicine is believed to be one of the future treatments if carefully formulated and designed. John Kasim reports.
The Medicines Control Association of Zimbabwe has revealed that the country has started licensing a few pharmaceutical companies to manufacture cannabis drugs a few years after the country issued permits to 60 farmers. By then, Zimbabwe was one of the first African countries to allow production of cannabis, although the requisite started from $50,000 to as much as $1 million for investors. A few years after the first crop production meant for export, farmers started complaining of heavy losses in a highly speculative industry.
The top story at 4 o'clock, Joburg Water says stationary and mobile water tankers will be deployed to areas which may be affected by the maintenance operations at the Eikenhof pump station from 7 o'clock tonight. For SAFM News, Gemudupima Khalemel.
In sports, Springbok squad announcement delayed after cancelled flight. Proteas confident with positive semi-finals showing, and Mokoena cashed in millions in bonuses at Sundowns last season. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the N3 northbound has roadworks reported, the left lane being closed towards Buccleuch Interchange. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle after Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 in Estcourt has roadworks with traffic restrictions near the Faro exit. And in Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Harold Drive southbound in Mitchells Plain is queuing towards Highlands Drive, and Coburg Road southbound is slow moving towards the N1 Coburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Great that you are a part of the National Pulse, and you effectively are a manifestation of the things that moves the nation every single day. And I told you from the outset of today's show that, you know what, we have a plan and then things just change every minute. And this is exactly how it goes, okay? Because we'll be chatting to Kenny Kunene, the Deputy President of the Patriotic Alliance, in a few minutes' time. And we did not plan to speak to him first, but things just change and things happen. And that's why we need to be talking to him, okay? Now, firstly, I'll tell you this much as well. The DA itself, they're not speaking to us now, but they've issued a statement and they've given out a whole list of preferences in terms of what they want in terms of the parliamentary positions that they have. And I'll try and go through that as soon as I can just now. I understand the reason that has shifted is because there's further negotiations taking place. What it confirms, as we can understand now, is that things are not clear-cut. There's a plan, but there's lots of discussion, deliberations taking place on all different political parties trying to push their position. Okay, so we'll get to the DA story just now. For now, Kenny Kunene with me, Deputy President of the Patriotic Alliance. Kenny, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and thank you for having us.
Right, appreciate it. We're talking to you. I mean, you have lots of thoughts about many things, but I think one of the issues in particular, right, is the issue of the Democratic Alliance. And you're not very happy with their position in terms of the negotiations for positions right now. Tell me what you think.
I'm not surprised because remember the Patriotic Alliance has worked with the DA at local government coalitions. And a lot of people would say to us that why are you leaving? Why are you not working with the DA? And we have maintained that the DA is a white supremacist, racist political party that thinks that it is above all other parties, especially black parties. And I'm happy that we have indicated because the DA has revealed itself. Number one, Ashraf, on the letter that the Democratic Alliance wrote to the Secretary General of the ANC demanding positions, that goes against what the Constitution of this country and the rule of law would then provide. It is clear that the Constitution provides or makes provision that the President has got the prerogative to constitute cabinet. That is why the ANC said in our negotiations, we are not going to discuss ministries and portfolios. We have to appoint the President, and then the Constitution then kicks in, which then says it is his prerogative. And that is why the President would then have one-on-ones with presidents of other parties and inform them of the decisions that he has made. But the DA wants to instruct the President of the country on what to do, going against the Constitution. Number two, the DA refuses to observe the rule of law, which they talk about so many times. But when it does not suit them, they discard it, they ignore it, and they disrespect the rule of law. They have put pen to paper, saying all director generals of the ministries that they would occupy must then be removed so that they can then put their own director generals. That is illegal. That's corruption. They've been accusing the ANC of cadre deployment. Here they are doing cadre deployment. They've been accusing the PA at local government level of wanting positions and power. Here they are holding the country to ransom because of positions and power. Since last week, the President, the Premier of Gauteng can't constitute their cabinet because the Democratic Alliance is making unreasonable demands because they want to run this country through the back door.
Okay,
they
I
want
hear you.
to run Gauteng through the back door.
All right, I hear that. That's a point you've made. Now let me put it this way: in negotiations for positions, I mean, all parties push together positions, knowing that there could be some pushback. So, what I'm trying to get at is when they make demands on certain cabinet positions for their DA members and the DGs that you speak about, would it not simply be a position of stating a hardline position, knowing that there will be some compromises along the line? I mean, many parties, many business people do that. What's so different about this?
You see, in a grand coalition, Ashraf, which is what we have had at local government, you then do that Kamina Gawena. This is what you take. No, I'm not happy. But here, we are talking about a framework that we have all agreed to. A government of national unity. Now, in this framework, the party with the larger numbers will then invite other parties to come and join. So you come by your own to say, we are now joining you so that we can make a government of national unity.
Okay.
But unlike at local level, it does not say it is the prerogative. But at national level, the constitution is clear. It's the prerogative of the president. And that is a thin line that the DA is deliberately ignoring so that they can force their way through. When you look at the PA, we said in public, this is what we would want to have, Home Affairs and Police, so as to implement our manifesto. But when you look at our meetings with the ANC, it was not a demand, but it was a say that says, this is our wish. However, let us look at what you offer us.
Okay, but that's the point. I'm saying to you, I know you didn't make a demand. Maybe they're putting it down as a demand, but in reality, they will do what you've done, you've suggested, understanding that it is the prerogative of the president. But let's move on then to other things now. How do you think we're going to solve this problem? Because clearly a cabinet has to be formed, right? An executive needs to be formed nationally and in South Africa's richest province, which is Gauteng.
Let me assist you. The DA believes that Umkhonto weSizwe and EFF will never be part of this arrangement, of this GNU.
Yeah.
That is why they are taking this hotline, which is, of course, inspired by or motivated by their racist tendencies. Because they say they are joining the GNU to save South Africa from who? From black parties, from black people. So they are saying they are the savior of South Africa. Yet South Africans have never voted for them.
All right, Kenny, I'm going to move on because I'm worried about time here. Solution is what?
The solution here, and I've made this call, is for MK, EFF, ANC to find each other, to put party politics aside, to put demands aside, and to say, let us save, let us protect our country not to go back to an apartheid era. Let me tell you one of the demands that they put in that particular letter they wrote. They say Steenhuisen must be the deputy president. Now, if not, he must be a minister in the presidency. The reason why Steenhuisen has been chasing Paul Mashatile with all these newspaper articles and try to make them a crime, a criminal matter, is because they were trying to push the ANC to call to remove Paul Mashatile so that Steenhuisen, as per their letter, can then come in as the deputy president. Once he's the deputy president, they will bring Phala Phala, and then the president will be forced, Cyril Ramaphosa, to resign. Naturally, Steenhuisen becomes the president. The ANC will not take it right, and some South Africans in certain quarters, there will be unrest. They will call for state of emergency, suspend the constitution, and then declare the Western Cape as a country.
Okay, Kenny, I've heard that. Kenny, I've heard that story before. Let's move on. Right now, considering all the things you've said, I mean, let's just touch on the Phala Phala thing first of all. Right, if anybody brings up the Phala Phala thing, and I'm not saying the president is guilty or he's not guilty, but assuming he is, right, then what would be wrong?
It was never brought in our discussion.
But let's
all that
assume
we
it does.
discussed with the ANC is the frameworks, and our second meeting was about. We have said with the NEC, we have now agreed that the PA be part of the GNU. We want to work with the PA. And then the president of the Patriotic Alliance and the president of the country will then meet when the time permits before the announcement of cabinet so that the president can then make his offer to the president. But
Kenny, let's move on. So let's deal with what we have right now, okay? What we have right now is that the cabinet has not been confirmed, unless you know something I don't know. That's both at national level and certainly the provincial executive of the Gauteng province has not been confirmed for some of the reasons potentially that you've just discussed. So how do we break the logjam? I mean, practically.
Practically, there's two options. The DA will never back off. They've already threatened to walk away. Let them walk away. It's fine. Good riddance. So there's one of two solutions. Either we go through the minority framework, which is risky because you are dependent on people to vote for budget, to vote for this. Or you then go back and say, EFF, can you come on board? MK, can you come on board? Can we find each other? And let us then serve South Africans. Let's put the country first. Let's put our dislike, our hatred of each other, our party politics aside, and let us put South Africa
All right,
first.
let's just deal with the realities.
The DA is outside of the GNU because it's clear. The DA has got an agenda that does not serve the South Africans.
Okay, Kenny. So I'm sticking with the breaking the logjam. You're saying, if I understand you correctly, you're suggesting that they've already threatened to walk out of the GNU, that's the DA, right? 8.1, yes. And you're suggesting that there doesn't appear to be any scope for the ANC and the DA and the parties like yourselves to get any closer to any agreement. So in fact, this deadlock will continue. So there will be no choice but for them to walk away. Is that what you're saying?
The deadlock between the ANC and the DA will never be resolved. What the DA wants, the ANC in its right mind cannot give them. So it's not going to happen unless the DA then decides to reduce the number of ministries, which they will not do because they are a white supremacist racist party. They'll never do that.
All right, but okay, here's the last thing. So you're saying they won't do it, right? Right, okay. So
they won't do it.
So then, if they walk away, that's a major party, because they have more than 20% of the vote, that would not form part of the GNU.
They are not a major party. They are just the second largest party. They rigged elections. But if you looked at the numbers, had the ANC gone with EFF and the Patriotic Alliance, it would have gone above 51. Okay. And then it would then bring other parties in. So the DA is not the alpha and the omega. It's just that the DA is banking on the issue that MK and EFF will not go with the ANC. However, remember, the EFF is saying, we will not join if the DA and Freedom Front Plus are there. But the EFF must understand, if they join this GNU, the DA will naturally leave because they are not here to put the country first. They are here to say, we are prepared to work with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They didn't want the PA in the GNU.
Kenny, here's the last thing. That all things considered, and considering your point about white racist supremacy, and I'm quoting you on that issue, right? And you're saying they rigged the election, if I could hear that. Then why did you join the GNU knowing that the DA were already part of it?
We have always been consistent that we will be in a coalition with anyone. We'll still be in a coalition with the DA if it works and force them to go to the rehabilitation center of racism. We will correct them. We will help them to correct themselves. If they don't, we will continue making sure that they get to that point.
Okay. That sounds more like a government of national disunity. Kenny Kuneni, thanks for your time. Deputy President of the Patriotic Alliance. I tell you what, make of that what you will. So much came out of that conversation. I know we could have spoken for 1 hour and perhaps get other people to come in and talk about it. So the DA not talking at the moment. They've confirmed that they've made some very specific recommendations to the ANC in terms of positions they want. They can't talk now only because there's further negotiations taking place. But picking up from what Kenny Kuneni is saying, and I'm not saying he's got it right, he's suggesting that the DA is poles apart with the ANC, that they've threatened to walk out of the coalition of the GNU, and according to him, well, they must go because then the EFF will have a chance to come back in or chance to join in the GNU. That's why, according to him, we do not have a cabinet named nationally, and that's why we do not have an executive of the Gauteng province named as yet. Right, it is called the National Pulse. Is your pulse racing or boiling at the moment? I'm sure it is. 0614 104 107. Others to call in 086 000 2032.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, if you think we have issues, we certainly have issues in other countries on the African continent as well, right? And we'll connect with my guest in just a moment. So there's been issues of protest and mass protests, I understand, in Kenya. So with me right now, by the way, just let me tell you, I will take your calls on what came out of that Kenyan of the Kenny Kuneni issue and the Patriotic Alliance. I will take your calls, and in terms of the way forward on that issue, we'll do that in a few minutes' time. But let's get back to the discussion around Kenya, which we'll do in just a moment or so. I just want to get the guests confirmed. As soon as we do that, we will do that. Right? Okay. So we do have Wanjiku, who's talking to us now. She was one of the protesters in Nairobi, or still is, I suppose. Wanjiru, appreciate your time talking to us here on the National Pulse.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. So give us a sense of what is the issue in Kenya and why are you protesting?
So personally, I was in the streets because the current government is gambling with my future as a young person in this country. They want to please the IMF and the World Bank at the cost of my future. So this is what is happening. There is a new Finance Bill 2024 proposal that is currently ongoing. So far, it has reached the second reading. The committee stage will happen tomorrow. And once again, we have planned a protest to shut down Kenya, because we need our voices to be heard. We are saying that we reject the bill because it imposes more taxes on us, while there are misuse of public funds. They want to tax things like earners who earn 24,000 Kenya shillings. They want to tax people who earn less than 24,000. And at the same time, the members of parliament want their car grants to be tax-free. They want to increase fuel. They did that last year. They want to increase fuel. And when they do that, manufacturing, transport, everything else will go up. They have also introduced a new levy that will affect items like cameras, speakers, diapers, TV. Like the bill, what we are saying is that we reject the bill 2024. And that is why young people, they are protesting. We have a schedule for this week, meaning tomorrow we will be on the streets and coming on Thursday. So what happens on Thursday? On Thursday is when is the last stage. That is the presidential assent. What we are saying is that we want to march to State House to witness the president sign that bill and sell our future. That is all we are saying. If they don't listen to us, we just want to occupy. Tomorrow we are occupying parliament, and all we want to see is witness as our members of parliament sell out our future.
All right, let's talk about the protests. I mean, what is the level of protests? I mean, you yourself, but I mean, you're part of a grouping. So who are the groups or groupings or the activists that are out on the streets protesting?
No. We have no leaders. That is what our government is doing. They are actually trying to investigate who is funding the young people. Why all of a sudden, why are they out there? Who is funding them? They have been seen on television saying we are being funded by Russia. They are saying we are being funded by Illuminati. That's outrageous. It's so sad that those are our leaders who they think they can even think like that. It's so sad. The protest was peaceful. There's no one organizing us. We're just using social media. I did a video summarizing what the Finance Bill 2024 is saying. We had Kenyans react. And these things, there are some activists speaking up. We have banners on Twitter, everywhere, on all social media. When we say we show up, we occupy parliament as young people, we say we have no leaders.
I can think of something similar that happened in Egypt, isn't it? In Cairo at the time when Hosni Mubarak was the leader. There was no obvious leader, and people came to the streets. And as we know, Mubarak finally was toppled. Right? Your demand is not to topple government, is it?
Sorry?
Is your demand not to topple government? No.
Our demands are we are telling the government to do away with the 2024 finance bill. That's what you're saying. Those are our demands. Because the protests were peaceful, but the police used force on us. They drew tear gas. You will see all those videos there are on social media. They used water cannons to the point that 2 of our fellow young men died from gunshots on the same day. As we speak, there are ongoing abductions in this country, the same country that we say we are freed. We have free democracy. However, we shall not relent. That is what we are telling the Kenyan government. We are not relenting. Tomorrow, once again, we will be on the streets. It's time the government listens to the people because the power belongs to the people.
Okay, what has been the reaction from a government and general, say, the international community? Like we're talking to you in South Africa because we're concerned about what's happening. Yeah.
At first, the government, we are like, these are just young people who don't know what they want. They are just a bunch of TikTokers. They just want to trend. They want views. That is what a member of parliament said in parliament. They went on like that, but they have changed the tune, apparently. Now they are saying they congratulate, they are so proud of the young people. We don't know, we don't understand the political games they are playing. Once you say this, we are just a bunch of children who have no idea how governance run. And then right now as we speak, they are on TV, others apologizing. The ones who said we don't know, they are apologizing. So that's the mood right now.
Has there been quickly an official response from government?
The president yesterday, he was in some church in a place called Nyahururu. He said that he's so proud of us and he's willing to sit down with us and he's willing to listen to us.
Okay, what do you make of that? The president's proud of you, the same president whose the bill is the one that you're opposing.
That has been said before. They've said that it has been done before. They have said that to our parents. So what they normally do when they say that, they want a leader out of us, out of all these youth, so that they can have the leaders with them. They hold a meeting, money is transferred, shared, and then those leaders will come and sing a different song to us. So what we are saying, we have no leaders. There is no one to go cut deals with the government. So what if he supports, if he's willing to listen, he should just do away with the 2024 finance bill.
Okay, I tell you what, we're going to talk to you again, I'm sure about that, because I think your testimony is really important. As far as your videos are concerned, feel free to tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. We will certainly look at it and share that where we can. Certainly need to amplify the goings on in Kenya. Wanjiku, appreciate your time. One of the protesters in Nairobi, part of a movement with no obvious leaders. And is that the way to go right now? It seems like it, isn't it? Let's get the news headlines now. It's 4:30 with Madupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the SABC has confirmed the cabinet demands of the DA set out in a letter written by Federal Chair Helen Ziller to ANC SG Fikile Mbalula. Joburg Water says stationary and mobile water tankers will be deployed to areas which may be affected by the maintenance operations at the Aikenhof pump station from 7 o'clock tonight. And the death toll in last night's attacks in the Dagestan in the Russian Federation have risen to 19, including 15 police officers and 4 civilians. A full news update coming up at 5.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, January Maselela Drive northbound in Pretoria is slow moving towards Linwood Road. The R21 southbound in Clayville has roadworks with lane closures reported before Williefontein Road, so you're asked to expect delays and to allow extra travel time for flight connections from the airport. In KZN, The M7 has roadworks with traffic restrictions towards Bel Air Road, Wakesley Road Junction, and the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle reported after Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound in Kraaifontein has a stationary bus after Brighton Road exit, and Kendall Road in Deep River has construction site works reported near Boundary Road, so you're asked to expect delays in the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me as the Minister of Sports, I trust you're well. We can talk about cricket celebrations, but you want to talk rugby first?
Yes, I'm very good. We start things off with rugby this hour. The Springboks announcement for their incoming series against Ireland and Portugal squad announcement will be tomorrow after the team's flight from London to Johannesburg was cancelled yesterday. The national team should be on a flight right now to arrive in the country tomorrow. From there, the team is expected to begin preparations from tomorrow for the opening test against Ireland in Pretoria next weekend. Then in cricket, the Proteas spinner Shabrai Shamsi says that there's a mindset shift in the team as they head into the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean. Now, South Africa made history by becoming the first team to win 7 matches in a single edition of a T20 Global Showpiece as they edged past the West Indies by 3 wickets to book their spot in the last 4 for the first time in 10 years this morning.
Look, obviously, most of the games have been a lot closer than we would have personally liked. But the amazing thing is that, this new Proteas team always seems to get over the line, We've been put under huge pressure basically in every single game that we've played. And, the boys have managed to find a way to win, no matter what the situation is, no matter how close the game is. So that's really pleasing for us as a unit, and it's sort of like, in a funny way, we're looking forward to it.
Well, they will know by tomorrow who they will face in the knockout stage. Meanwhile, Windies captain Rovman Powell believes that despite crashing out of the World Cup, they have improved as a team. Well, moving on to football, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Rulani Mokoena is reaping the rewards of his success with a substantial 7 million rand in bonuses. This financial windfall comes as a result of his leadership, which saw Sundowns secure their record-extending 7th DStv Premiership League title in a row and the inaugural and lucrative African Football League title. Mokoena's contract entitles him to a share of the team's prize money, kept at 6%, adding to a layer of intrigue to the story. Mokoena's latest and main contract has become a key document in the ongoing civil lawsuit case involving Sundowns, MT Sports and Bitso Mosimane. In the meantime, Banyana head coach Desiree Ellis says that she's disappointed the Women's Africa Cup of Nations has been postponed by a year and will now take place in July 2026. Now, initially, the tournament was set to be staged next month, but the date has been allocated to Paris 2024 Olympic Games with 2 African teams taking part in Zambia and Nigeria. South Africa are defending champions of WAFCON after winning the continental title in 2022 in Morocco, and Ellis, however, says that the postponement might help them plan thoroughly. It is taking place in 2025 rather.
It's a bit disappointing that it's not happening this year, but now it's also great that you know now when it's happening and a year away. Obviously gives you a little bit more time to prepare, but also to have a look at other players. The new cycle started last year after the World Cup, but because you still had a Olympics that you needed to try to qualify for, you still needed players, but you also have to look at not just for next year's WAFCON, but you also have to build towards 2026 when there is a qualifying tournament again to qualify for the World Cup. So you have to get players ready. But for me, it's always been about if you're good enough, you're old enough. For me, it's always been the player can still add value. And we will leave the door open, until the last minute, but it gives us a lot of time to prepare, and to get players ready and to make sure that we go there and defend. It's always difficult to defend. It's probably easier to win because not everybody wants to knock you off. But I think the resilience that this team has shown over the years will hold us in good stead. And those coming in feel that and they have to step up and glad that it's out now. Because now you can prepare for something. We were just playing and not really preparing but playing, half preparing because you didn't know when and you still don't know who you're playing. And
in rugby, Scott Barrett was named captain of the All Blacks today by head coach Scott Robertson as he unveiled his first squad for a 2-test series against England next month. Barrett takes over from Sam Cane, who stepped down having skipped New Zealand since 2020. The Lock steps up having made 69 test appearances in the Flamers' black shirt since his debut in 2016. Then in tennis, Andy Murray has not made a decision on whether he'll be fit enough to make a planned Wimbledon farewell next week. The 37-year-old had a procedure on a back issue at the weekend. Murray is set to retire later this year and hopes for a final appearance at Wimbledon, where he won 2 of his 3 Grand Slam titles. Murray has also been selected for Great Britain at the Paris Olympic Games. And finally, in the business of sports, still staying with tennis, Carlos Alcaraz has signed a new contract with Nike worth around $15 to $20 million. That's around 273 or 363 rand million annually. Now, the agreement is set to run for the next decade. As part of the deal also, he will get his own customized logo, and he's only 21 years old. Well, with that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in at the next
Tell
hour.
me something. Did you read the book called Shoe Dog? You read it?
I did.
You must read
Amazing.
it. And I'm talking about the whole nation here. You need to read it, how to build a global business. As far as building a global winning team, the cricketers are in the semi-finals, man.
Yeah, the cricketers.
That's something.
In the semi-finals, and the key word is not choke anymore. Now it's clutch.
I don't know why you said that, even the word choke. Choke refers to a team that effectively comes in as favorites, in my opinion. It comes in as favorites and then gets to a certain level and then bombs out completely.
But I mean,
when there's I don't think there's much expectations of this team.
Because a lot of people feel like when the Proteas get to the critical stages and they play in matches that are critical, they never win. However, as you heard Shamsi saying, this is a different type of team, and surely they will get that win, even if it means just 3 wickets or 1 run.
There you are. And by the way, nobody's talking about the fact that Australia lost to Afghanistan of all teams and almost lost to Afghanistan in the 50-over World Cup last year, but that's another conversation. Right, we'll talk more in more sport in an hour's time.
Righty.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets now with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good chatting to you. Let's talk about RCL and PPC, right? So we're talking about the building industry too. Go ahead.
Definitely. And afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to your listeners. Remember, RCL, this are your Maheu number 1 guys, Salati Sugar, Sun-Baked Bread. The guys expect profits as headline earnings per share to increase by 75% and driven mainly by Rainbow Chicken and groceries. Groceries improved mainly due to the restoration of their pet food volumes following improved load shedding combined with improved margins. And sugar continued to benefit from high international prices, but bacon remained under pressure, dragged by bread, buns and rolls as competition has increased, and that itself squeezed the volumes and margins. And Rainbow, which will be unbundled and listed separately, had to deal with the softening prices and lower quick service restaurant volumes because of weaker consumer demand, and also drier weather led to higher local maize meal prices, resulting in higher feed costs. And PPC, the group has faced sustained underperformance and decrease in profitability, but they are now refocusing the organization on their core business, selling its rest of Africa business. We know now recently they just sold 51 stake in their business in Rwanda, and the group revenue was up 20%, driven mainly by strong performance when it comes to the Zimbabwean operations. SA and Botswana group cement revenue increased marginally by 5.2%, and they were helped by better prices and increased sales of clinker to Zimbabwe, and lower SA and Botswana sales volumes reduced the cost of sales, turned from losses, fortunately for them, to profits, as headline earnings per share of 19 cents per share. And Ashraf, the guys are paying us the first dividend in 9 years.
Okay, let's get to Makwe. Let's talk about local and global markets as well.
Yeah, expectation of an eventual lowering when it comes to interest rates has been driven markets up, and even as the U.S. Central Bank signaled that sticky inflation and strong economy kept chances of such a scenario slim, and concerns of higher for longer interest rates resurfaced in is cooling investors' risk appetite. That's after that better than expected U.S. PMI data on Friday, and the dollar was getting a little bit of a boost from that, and that was putting pressure on the likes of the rand, and the rand situation was worsened by the weight when it comes to the cabinet appointments. And Ashraf, it seems the dollar bulls are back in charge, and the global stocks are up as market participants get up for a week burdened with political and inflation data. We know in Europe there is that first voting round when it comes to parliamentary elections on Sunday, which polls are now showing further gains for the far-right national rally, and locally we are waiting for that cabinet formulation. And Friday will be bringing inflation data from the euro area as well as from the US, and we know that one from the US is the central bank's preferred gauge of consumer cost, that is the personal consumption expenditure. Oil prices are firming up as traders are weighing the support that is coming from the expected summer demand and geopolitical tension, and that's against a stronger dollar. And we see Brent crude is up 0.4% at $84, and gold traders are eyeing that US inflation data. The yellow metal is up 0.3% at 2,328, platinum up 1%, cake is up 1.2%, tax up 1%, food is just like the Dow up 0.8%, S&P is up 0.3%, the JSE is up 1.1%. Remember last week the JSE was flat, up only 0.02% for the week, and resources are the ones which are doing the most of the heavy lifting today, up 3%, industrials up 1.5%, but our financials are down 0.2%, and the rand is now 18.12 to the US dollar. Last week the rand firmed almost 1.7% against the US dollar. Today it weakened almost 0.7%, and against the pound is 23, and against the euro is 19.44.
Well, that's it for now. Makwe, we'll chat tomorrow. Makwe Masilela, thank you for your time. Right, we'll have another market update coming up in just under an hour, together with sport as well. Don't forget that. Right, I need to get to your calls. So the conversation, just to tell you, there's been a document that was leaked from the DA, written by Helen Ziller, addressed to Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, where they put together portfolios that they want, and that is what Kenny Kunene has been alluding to, by the way. Now, the DA has confirmed, and we've confirmed it with them, that document is original. It's a fact. That letter was sent. They're not talking to us now only because the DA themselves are now in negotiations with the ANC, even as we talk. So that is a moving story. I mean, talking about conversations that move us and raising the national pulse. It happens every single day. Okay, let's get to some of the calls. I think it's Tando first up we'll get to Tando just now. Lester September in Cape Town. Hi, Lester.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
It's a pleasure, Lester.
I just wanted to speak about the gentleman. Well, not actually him, but I think you've been talking about a run here for the past 2 days or so.
Well, I spoke to the spokesman from Aranya, about an hour ago, 45 minutes ago.
Yes. So that's what I want to speak to you about, man, because I hear these guys talking, and they're talking about Christian and being Christian, and I want to say, I don't like people besmirching the God that I serve. Because the God that I serve is a God of love. Not a God, not a separatist. And if I'm a Moravian, by the way. I'm also a little bit of an amateur etymologist. Etymology is the scientific study of the meaning of words. And I use the Bible to do that, looking at the Greek and the Hebrew. Do you know Jesus called the chief priests Pharisees? You know what Pharisee means? It comes from the Greek word phariseo, which means a separatist. By implication, a segregationist. The Hebrew word is porash. I might be saying it incorrectly. And from a South African context, it's quite alarming because porash means to wound and scatter. Right?
Okay, I need to push you very quickly. What's your point? I mean, really.
So my point is, when they are talking about my last point is that Christ used the word perisha, which is Aramaic, right? And it says, and that means set apart. And from that word comes the word of, in Afrikaans, apartheid, right? And so we've got a very scarred history in South Africa, where people have used religion erroneously not erroneously, I believe it was purposely done to bring about certain ideologies.
Okay.
Right? And I think they must stop doing that. Don't come and say that you are Christian when you are perverting the religion.
Okay, I hear you. I need to move on because I hear what you're saying, but the problem with that is, it's like us prescribing to an entire group. They have freedom of movement to decide and how they want to get together and say what they want, and you have the same thing. You have the freedom to do the same thing. Okay, thanks for that, Lester. Let's get to July now. July, hi.
How are you?
Yeah,
Esther?
Good talking to you. Right, go ahead. What's your point?
Yeah, my point actually is a solution on this challenge of GNU.
All right, just wait. Hold it. You got a solution. Hold on. Let me just call Cyril Ramaphosa and let me just call Helen Zille as well. And the others. Listen, we've got somebody with a solution. Okay, what's the solution?
Yeah, let me first indicate that GNU, it won't work whether they like it or not. The problem is that President Ramaphosa is a very good guy. He likes DA. But the supporters and voters and members of ANC hate DA because the father of Tony Leon is the judge who sentenced and convicted Solomon Mahlangu to death. So whether he can say DA is good because DA was led by...
Yeah, but you're not giving me a solution. I mean, I need to push you, July. What's your quick solution, please, ma'am? Yeah.
Let me stop the background and give the solution. The solution is that they must stop the GNU and make a coalition.
With who?
A coalition must be between ANC and MK.
MK doesn't want to talk to the ANC. They said the ANC must drop their president, the same person you said is a good man.
The solution. I know them. They don't like Cyril. That's why when you heard the President Zuma, he's talking about ANC of Ramaphosa, but he never rebuked the ANC, the original ANC. So National Working Committee of ANC, they have to convene a special national general, National General Council. They don't have to invite people to come to one venue. They can use...
Okay, July, I'm gonna move on. I mean, that's not going to happen now. I'm just saying. I hear your thoughts. It's not going to happen this week. It's not going to happen in July either. It's just not going to happen now. Maybe down the line, maybe. But we have more pressing issues in terms of forming a government. We have to form an executive, and that's urgent, right? Thanks for that call. I'll look at some WhatsApp notes as well, and there's some interesting thoughts around a study regarding South Africa's youth and what they think and what they feel about some of the most important issues in the country, things that would connect them to you to them, certainly would drive the national pulse.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers,
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Water infrastructure vandalism has costly and usually dangerous consequences. Stealing of manhole covers leads to the death of children. Every broken pipe or vandalized pump doesn't just cost money, but it also threatens our access to clean water, disrupts service delivery, and endangers public health and safety. Help us in the fight against water infrastructure vandalism by reporting any suspicious activity to the City of Johannesburg on 0800 002 587. Your vigilance can prevent a death or disaster. This message is brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Santi Africa! The great Olympians are heading to Paris with courage, determination, and eagerness to raise the flag of Africa Zonga very high. Let's rally behind the well-decorated Team SA. Athletics, swimming, canoeing, climbing, gymnastics, and surfing. The winning mentality of Africa Chipembe will prevail. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, the letter from the DA's federal chairperson of the Federal Council, Helen Ziller, sent to the Fikile Mbalula, right, the Secretary General of the ANC, is quite long. I won't read through all of it because there's not much time. But in terms of they want, right, in terms of what they're suggesting, want recommendations, sectors they want in the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Transport, Minister of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Public Works and Infrastructure, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Public Service, Ministry of Cooperation and Governance, Ministry of Justice, Home Affairs, International Relations, and then Communications and Digital. And I understand that a lot of it, they also want to have the DG in those ministries, would also be DGs that they would recommend to the president, but they would appoint. I'll try and read it as much as I can in more detail. There'll be a lot of conversation around that. I'm absolutely sure about that. Let's, however, get to the issue of South African youth and certainly their take on some of the more important issues. Now, the CEO of the African Response, they've put together a survey for Youth Month via Mzansi Voice. It's an online platform and looked at a range of issues, and I think you'll be very interested to know what's come through from that. So Mamadupi Nkadima is the CEO of African Response. Good chatting to you. You're live with the National Pulse, Mamadupi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Much appreciate your time. Right. So give us some of the key bullet points that's emerged from this survey that you did with South Africa's youth.
What is critical that came out of the survey that African Response concluded or completed this month is that South African youth, the number of unemployment is not getting any better. So we're basically moving on. Stats SA revealed that we're now sitting at 45.5% of youth unemployment. We then went back to find out South African youth, how do they classify themselves? And the confirmation is that yes, South African youth are unemployed. But what became very interesting from this survey that African Response concluded is that 41% of those that classify themselves as unemployed are earning up to 15,000 a month. And we became quite curious to know if you are unemployed, you classify yourself as unemployed, but you are indicating that there is an earning. It really just highlighted the reality that South Africans are hustling. And South African youth are no different. There is the hustling culture in South Africa because when we look at the different types of things that the youth are doing, it's creating own businesses. I think 10% of those that we engage said, I'm doing something, I'm earning money because I've created my own business. Or basically just start hustling. I'm running a hair salon, to selling chisanyama, to cleaning cars. So it's quite a lot of different things, piece jobs here and there, freelancing here and there. So I think for us it became very clear to say when we talk about employment and unemployment, it's just important that we understand that it's not necessarily that someone is sitting there and saying, I'm waiting for the ideal job.
I think, and does that change perceptions of South Africa's youth? I mean, I think my sense, a quick read of the survey, is that it does change a lot of perceptions about, people just being apathetic and not just unemployed, but not doing much. And I gather this tells you very differently.
Definitely, this tells it very differently. And also this tells us to say, I think we need to be very deliberate about the narrative that we are pushing out there as South Africans, because sometimes we underestimate or we undermine what is happening, and the narrative is that South African youth are sitting there and they are waiting for jobs. Meanwhile, the narrative could be saying, how can we build what is going on? How can we encourage on even be thinking about solutions and initiatives that are stimulating this creativity for South African youth, not to sit and wait for the ideal job, but to continue hustling and making sure that unemployment rate, while it's still there, it's not leaving people with lack of any earning.
Yeah. And anything surprise you as well? I mean, anything else that really stood out that you didn't expect at all?
I think what really surprised us was when we looked at those that are unemployed versus, let me just say, when we look at graduates that are unemployed, we've seen this figure being quite consistently out there. We know that most parents would like to be pushing their kids to go to university to go study, because there's almost this perception that when you qualify, when you study, your opportunities for job employment is much higher. But we're seeing that we're still sitting with a 10.6% unemployment rate amongst graduates. The percentage is even worse. I think even the first quarter of 2023 from SA even showed that figure even worse. For those that have got qualification but not gained through university, it's sitting at 23.5%. That also just tells you, where are we focusing in terms of training the youth in South Africa? Is it the focus on getting a qualification, or is it about getting a skill set? And I think the demonstration here says, yes, every parent would like to send their child to a tertiary education, but it's very important that we start to look at what does that do. Should we be focusing more on, let's provide the relevant skills, the practical skills that can be addressing the gaps and the needs that are sitting in the economy?
What does it say about, artificial intelligence, the use of, tech and innovation, and therefore understanding that the world of work has shifted? You've got 30 seconds to answer that.
It actually came out as well that technology is here to stay, and technology is changing at the speed of lightning. So it's not going to get any better. And what does that mean? The emphasis that came out as well is youth needs to catch on quickly. Obviously, we know youth are on the forefront of technological development, but how do they use technology to shape this innovative and initiatives in terms of creating opportunities for themselves? We talk about AI. We know that there's quite a lot of concern or worrying to say, is AI going to take my job? But what are some of those skill sets that is not going to be a victim to AI? Rather, AI can help enhance.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Lots to come out of that survey, and I suggest you if we just, maybe just post the links to us, we can certainly share it. Tag SAFM Radio and tag myself, and we'll certainly share it. Or people can Google it as well. CEO of African Response, that's Mamadupi in Khadima. That's part of a survey put together by the Mzansi Voice online platform. Let's get the news now. Manning the news desk at 5 o'clock is Greg Hose.
Thank you and good afternoon to you, Ashraf. In this news update, DA sets out cabinet preferences and death toll rises in Russia attack. Good day to you. The SABC's confirmed the cabinet preferences of the DA set out in a letter written by the federal chairperson of the party, Helen Ziller, to the ANC's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. The DA wants the position of deputy presidency, but if that is not attainable, then it is willing to compromise for a minister in the presidency and deputy minister of finance. The DA has further set its sights on 11 ministries that include mineral resources, transport, home affairs, public works and higher education. Meanwhile, civil society movement Defend Our Democracy says it hopes that ministers who will be appointed in cabinet will be placed in their area of expertise. The movement says it also hopes that appointed members will not be people implicated in state capture. The ANC says the president will announce his new executive in the next few days. The movement's Zakaria Vadi.
They do need to be, number one, I think, familiar with the tasks ahead. If, for example, it's someone in the health sector, they need to understand what are the issues in that sector. If it's someone who is in the transport department, similarly, they need to have a sense. But at the same time, we know that not everyone comes with specific expertise, and therefore there needs to be a willingness to work with others in the sector who may have that expertise and others who can be brought into a particular sector to strengthen it as well.
Johannesburg Water says stationary and mobile water tankers will be deployed to areas which may be affected by the maintenance operations at the Eikenhof pump station from 7 p.m. this evening. The bulk water entity kicked off its 37-day maintenance project in Gauteng over the weekend in an attempt to preserve the quality and integrity of its infrastructure. Residents and businesses can expect low water pressure at times while work is being conducted. Johannesburg Water spokesperson Mbuso Shabalala.
During this time, Johannesburg Water customers will be impacted by low pressure to no water. Johannesburg Water has made arrangements for alternative water supply, which will be in the form of stationary and roaming water tankers. Johannesburg Water systems supplied by Eikenhof include Soweto, Randburg, Rudeport, Johannesburg South and Central. For Daleside, it is Orange Farm, Ennedale and Lowly. And Swartkopies, it is Johannesburg Central, Parktown, Berea, Yeoville and Forest Hill.
7 suspects have been arrested in connection with the murder of an initiation school supervisor at Terraleng in Limpopo. The man was beaten to death during clashes between a group of men from an initiation school and locals. Police say a group from the initiation school was forcing people to stop playing music during the traditional practice. Police spokesperson Malasela Ledwab.
It is alleged that the two groups attacked each other with stones, where several people sustained injuries and a 35-year-old man lost his life. Subsequent to the violence, a team of investigators were assigned to hunt down the suspects and made a breakthrough on Sunday when they arrested 3 suspects aged between 34 and 42 for cases of assault GBH. The other 4 suspects aged 35 and 45 were charged with murder.
The death toll in last night's attacks in the Dagestan and the Russian Federation has risen to 19, including 15 police officers and 4 civilians. The Kremlin is yet to comment on the attacks, which targeted churches and synagogues. Officials say 6 gunmen are dead. The gunmen are said to have opened fire at an Orthodox church in the Dagestan capital and a synagogue in the city of Durban. The top story, the SABC has confirmed the cabinet preferences of the DA set out in a letter written by the federal chairperson of the DA, Helen Zille, to the ANC's Secretary-General, Fikile Mbalula. The DA has set its sights on 11 ministries that include mineral resources, transport, home affairs, public works and higher education. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. Summit Road westbound in Midrand has delays at Blue Hills. In Pretoria, January Masilela Drive northbound is slow moving towards Linwood Road, and Solomon Mhlangu Drive westbound has a crash reported at Hay Meadow Crescent. In KZN, the N2 southbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions at Amanzimtoti. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 northbound queuing opposite Westwood Mall. The N3 westbound has a crash reported after Ashburton exit, and South Coast Road has truck congestion reported between the M7 highway and Bayhead Road. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound has a stationary bus reported after Brighton Road exit. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumbum Road exit, and Lesbuke Parkway outbound slow moving through Observatory. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, the third hour of the National Pulse, and really things change all the time. So my understanding is, and this is from the DA, so you know about the letter, right? My understanding is that letter confirmation that it is a letter that it made some demands, not just in terms of key positions, 11 key positions, I understand, but also saying that the DGs of those departments would be someone that they would want to put in. I'm reluctant to use the words insist or it must be their person, but that in essence is the type of influence they would want to have over the appointment of the Director General, and the Directors General currently in position must be asked to step down. I'm paraphrasing, lots of it. So that letter is genuine. It's been confirmed by the DA. They're currently in talks with the ANC because at stake at this point in time, and this is what's coming across, and you can add your thoughts to this issue as well. At stake at this point in time is a sense that the two most significant parties, if I can call it that, within the Government of National Unity, they appear to be poles apart with significant positions. And that's why there's been no cabinet announcement. Now, Kenny Kuneni himself, from the Patriotic Alliance, we spoke to him early on. You can catch the full podcast. It's downloaded. Go to the SAFM website, or also follow it on our Twitter or X platform. But he also spoke about the fact that he knows that the DA has threatened to withdraw from the Government of National Unity. So that's just talk. That's certainly from his point of view, okay? We'll certainly get further thoughts and your opinion. Let's do this. Let's play some sound from the Kenny Kuneni interview that we had earlier on. This is what he said.
The solution here, and I've made this call, is for MK, EFF, ANC to find each other, to put party politics aside, to put demands aside, and to say, let us save, let us protect our country not to go back to an apartheid era. Let me tell you one of the demands that they put in that particular letter they wrote. Mm-hmm. They say Steenhuisen must be the deputy president. Now, if not, he must be a minister in the presidency. The reason why Steenhuisen has been chasing Paul Mashatile with all these newspaper articles and try to make them a crime, a criminal matter, is because they were trying to push the ANC to call to remove Paul Mashatile so that Steenhuisen, as per their letter, can then come in as the deputy president. Once he's the deputy president, they will bring Phala Phala, and then the president will be forced, Cyril Ramaphosa, to resign. Naturally, Steenhuisen becomes the president. The ANC will not take it right, and some South Africans in certain quarters, there will be unrest. They will call for state of emergency, suspend the constitution, and then declare the Western Cape as a country.
Okay, I mean, that's Kenny Kuneni talking about the letter. Now, to be fair, I've certainly heard that story before. It's not like we've heard it for the first time where they've put sort of hard bargaining. As you also know, the MK party said they'll only talk to the ANC provided Ramaphosa is not their president. So there's this type of hard bargaining. But listen to the interview, the full interview with Kenny Kuneni up as a podcast. Lots of interesting things came out of that conversation, right? I'll tell you what you do. There's some range. There's lots of comments in terms of people trying to call in and WhatsApp and just getting reaction on a range of issues. This one here about the DA, I think, is worth considering.
E.g., the ANC cannot be very technical and invoke the constitution. I mean, they are doing as if they have won. They have failed to govern this country for 30 years. The DA is right to demand some position because when the government fails, they'll also shortly blame as a GNU. So, and also the DA got the fair share of the votes. So the ANC cannot be demanding to get allowed a share alone.
Well, I don't think the ANC is having the lion's share. I think the question is the what is being negotiated. And I've made the point as well, in my opinion. I think, political parties make demands in their initial letters of negotiation. And, that's like that's business, and it comes down to what you agree on. So I'm not. I mean, I saw the letter. I'm not suggesting that they're right or wrong. I mean, that's what it is, right? In fact, here you are. The assumptions made by Kenny Kuneni are outrageous. What is the nonsense about reverting to apartheid? I mean, I've heard that before, and I concur. There's a lot of sort of overreaction because there's some things. Let's get this right. South Africa's constitution does not allow a reverting back to apartheid. What can happen is the way you see transformation of our country and the way I see it or the DA sees it, or the ANC may differ, but nobody can go back to a position where we were before 1994 or 1990. That's not going to happen. Here's a question about power.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Matati from Pretoria. The only reason MK and ANC won't merge and go into a coalition is that they all love power. They love it and they abuse it at the same time. So they're just fighting over power and the public purse. We don't care.
We don't care. Really? I care. I tell you what, like it or not, whatever happens, and I've said this before, whether you voted or you didn't vote or who you voted for, the decisions of the political parties and now the government impacts on you and me 100% in terms of the let's start with the money side, from the rent to safety and security and the people who head up our various departments and the DGs. It absolutely does. So yeah, I like that one. Maybe laugh. We don't care. No, actually I do care, right? We spoke about Orania earlier, and by the way, you can get that conversation up as a podcast as well. Go to the website, safm.co.za, you'll find it. Basically, it was like an idiot's guide on Orania. Just what exactly is Orania?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, your team and the listeners. Thanks very much once again for having that very informative conversation with that gentleman from Orania. I think Orania it's a brilliant idea. Obviously, the media have sold us the story that Orania is where right-wing Afrikaners live. If I go there and there's an African person, I will be beaten up. From your conversation with that gentleman, I didn't get that. Thank you very much.
Okay. I also know we've had people calling in on the show who live in Hopetown or who are drivers. They can stop there. And there's a limit to how much I can ask him in the limited time we have. They can stop there, they can drop off things at the garage, but they can't stay there. And you also can't stay there because, as he suggested, like I gave the example of Johnny Clegg, you can be someone who's not Zulu, right, but embrace the Zulu culture, and then you welcome into that culture. And it happens everywhere, right? But you can't, according to him, you can't really be Afrikaner if your blood lineage doesn't speak to that. So you need to be of like Dutch and French Huguenot stock. So no matter how much, and then you can stay there. You have to apply. But nobody's been accepted so far. Everybody's allowed to apply, you and I too, but you can't stay there.
Ashraf, this is Sidwell Alinge from Soweto. What I would have liked you to ask your guest today is that why do they call themselves Afrikaners, associating themselves with the African continent? Why don't they call themselves European Africans or French Huguenot or whatever, as he refers to that as their roots and so on, blah, 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 blah. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Well, they certainly feel strongly about being Afrikaners, as they have called themselves. And I take your point. Thank you for that one. Here's another comment. Lots of people spoke about Orania, by the way.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Roskin Polokwan. I wish to meet one of the senior government leaders, maybe the president. I want to ask him, how does he justify the existence of Orania in this democratic country? I just want to hear how he responds to this question. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I hear the point about cultural communities, right? That I understand. But my point of departure with Orania is if you are a person outside of that culture, like I mentioned, if you're from a Zulu culture, but for whatever reason you decide that you enjoy the Afrikaner culture and you want to embrace all of that, like a conversion, not religious conversion, but a conversion of culture, then surely you must be allowed to do that. And if you're not allowed to do that purely on the basis of your race, yeah, that's another conversation. I mean, isn't it? Would that be apartheid? I would think so, but maybe somebody's got a better history lesson to teach me.
Hi, Ashraf.
Most of people there were saying that the EFF is rushing for position, but now we see that all other political parties, they are stuck on issue of position now, since there was no cabinet that is already formed right now, and we are watching that what will go on, and who will be deputy president. As right now we see that Johnston Hezen must be deputy president, and it seems that the ANC resisting that.
And then just last one, someone saying no one is complaining about the Zulu kingdom, so why Orania? Because I think you can live in the Zulu kingdom and not be Zulu. You can't live in Orania if you're not part of that stock. I mean, that's just my quick thoughts on that. Let's get to let's talk more about the DA now and what's going on with the government of national unity or national disunity. Tobani Zikalala with me, who's a political analyst. Tobani, I appreciate your time. You're joining us live on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, SIFM listeners, good morning, good afternoon, my brother.
Much appreciated. I'll tell you what, maybe if I speak, well, we go off at 6 o'clock, but if I went on at 7 o'clock, we'll have a completely different story because these things are changing. The way a game of rugby or football or cricket changes, politically that is, right? Okay.
By the click of the finger, things are changing and new things are coming up.
Absolutely. Right. What do you understand about the DA letter that the DA has now confirmed is theirs, where they've put together a request of, I think, 11 key positions in as part of the cabinet, and also made some requests around DGs that they would like to have in those positions, and existing DGs stepping down. Maybe there's some more I've missed in the time that I've had it. What do you make of it?
I mean, in today's language, Ashraf, one will say it seems the DA knows their worth and they are willing to demand it. But the problem is that maybe the DA may be misreading the moment, is that before the other political parties joined this arrangement of the government of national unity or the multi-party coalition, it held significant power. But it seems even if this government of national unity disintegrates, DA or the DA leaves it, the ANC has now at least tried to raise sufficient support for a possible multi-party coalition. The DA seems to be overplaying its hand, and the DA seems to be demanding almost the controlled running of the cabinet. Because if you look at some of their demands, it's mostly what people will call the core functions of government, and they are demanding almost everything. They're demanding to participate in almost everything. The issue is there is 10 parties that have agreed to this government of national unity. The DA must be willing, if really it is claiming that this is a government of national unity that must be inclusive, the DA must be willing to let go of some things to make sure that this government works. But it seems the DA wants to play the overseer role, wants to be the supervisor, and maybe what it has been accused of in different other multi-party coalitions that participated on, the so-called bus cap mentality or the big brother mentality. It seems it wants to play it here. But unfortunately, it may, in this position, lose if it wants to overplay its hand, because I think that's what they are doing.
So you think they've overplayed their hand?
I think they are overplaying their hand. I mean, in 2 weeks ago, as you said in the beginning, things changed quickly. 3 days ago, maybe they would have been in a position to demand more. But if you look now, where they are, the ANC almost is in a position to be able to quickly get other partners if the DA decides that if their demands are met, the ANC will quickly be in a position to be able to get other partners that get this over and done with.
So now they would have the 50% without the DA if anything happens. So quick one here. So Kenny Kuneni suggests, and I'm taking his words based upon what he knows, he's saying the DA has threatened to walk out of the GNU. What do you make of that?
Of course, if they do that, they work out the GNU concept almost collapses. But it doesn't mean the ANC is now in a weaker position than it was 2-3 days ago. The ANC is in a much better position. The ANC must make its its views heard and be able to show that this concept is theirs as they've been claiming in the media. Unless the DA knows something that we don't know. I mean, quickly, Ashraf, before you let me go. Another issue here is that
I'll tell you what to do. Just let me put you on hold for the moment, because I want to pick up on those issues you've mentioned and maybe one or two other things. Then I'll let you go right after this.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. Right? However, I do have some left brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Say ROBOT_BO the Cash Moon SABC 1, 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Deal or no deal, celebrity game. Let's get it.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, let's just wrap up the conversation with Tobani Zikalala, right? Okay, so Tobani, you want to add something? I get that, right? But we really agree that now they're in a position, the ANC, that they've got so many other parties, they would stay on 50+1, and it may open up the return, if I can call it that, of the EFF, if in fact it happens. But what do you think is going to happen?
I think, of course, maybe one way or another, we don't know, but the ANC's intent on working with the DA may have made the ANC maybe to fold on some of the positions that the DA wants. But I agree with you. The ANC is now in a better position. With the kicking out of the DA, the ANC must be bold. If it can't accede to the demands of the DA, it must be willing to kick them out. I mean, the EFF and maybe the MK are willing and able to work with them in the exclusion of the DA. The DA must not overplay its hand. It must not think that it can continue doing this. Because the politics game changes very quickly, Ashraf. The other point is that part of the demands of the DA, I mean, they are problematic in terms of what the politics that they've been pushing. The DA has been clear that cadre deployment and the involvement of political principals in the appointment of officials in government is problematic. But now the DA makes a demand that says they want to review contracts on DGs and they want to be able to participate in the hiring of their own DGs because they are afraid that these DGs will not be available to the direction of their own ministers. They want to participate in the review of tenders and want to participate in their new appointments. This is what the DA has been speaking about all along, of political interference of appointment of officials in government, or the political interference of demands.
And I mean, on that, we've got it in print now, so it's not a maybe. They literally are suggesting what they've accused the ANC of doing, right?
Of course, they've got it in an official letter.
Okay. Is there any final thought that you want to add?
I mean, besides the fact that the ANC must be bold, the ANC must rethink its mandate, must rethink who they are, and they must be in a position to be able to tell those who make ridiculous demand off. I mean, they are in the position to kick the DA out and create a new possibility. And they also must know that the country is waiting for a government. We can't wait for any longer. The elections are over. We need a government. And if there's people who are withholding or holding the nation to ransom because of their own nefarious interests, the ANC must be bold to kick those people out and form a government so that we can all proceed. The country needs service delivery, and it's currently being held into ransom by the DA.
Okay, there we are. Well, appreciate your time, Tobani Zikalala. But really, listen in. That story may change in the next hour or two. I understand the DA and the ANC were in talks this afternoon. That's why they're not talking to us. They are in talks, which does suggest that somebody has to break that deadlock. But who's waiting on the sides here? Thinking of a substitute of a rugby club or football club waiting in the wings to say, well, if you can't deliver, just call me. I'll try and sort out and score a goal or try for you. Who will do just that? Let's get into other things now completely around the issues of the true caller and your identity after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So how much do you know about, true identity when you make phone calls and your identity is revealed? And what does that mean, A, in terms of what you feel about it, but very importantly in terms of the proper act, in terms of the law, right? So Amor Berger-Schmidt is with me, who's the head of regulatory practice at Worksman's Attorneys. Amor, appreciate your time. Hi.
Evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right. So I understand we want to talk from a legal position about true caller and what that means in terms of my privacy and yours too.
I find it very interesting that Truecaller says part of their model is to enable people to exercise their right to privacy and not to receive calls from those they don't want to receive calls. But while they say that, on the other side of the coin, they actually allow everyone that joins Truecaller to upload their whole contact list number to the Truecaller database. So, for instance, if someone is not on Truecaller, their number is with Truecaller, even though they don't even know it. So what about that party's privacy? And I think that is the controversial thing around Truecaller from a legal perspective, whether they can legally process, that the law refers to, the person that's not signed up for Truecaller, their number, and hold it on their database.
So what does the law say according to how you understand it?
If we could think about the legislation says, number one, that I can't, and I'm now talking specifically in relation to Truecaller, I can't just transfer your personal information to another country if that country doesn't provide sufficient protection. Alternatively, if you haven't given consent. So that's the first important point. Should Truecaller transfer my telephone number, and I'm not on Truecaller, to a country that doesn't provide for sufficient protection of personal information and the protection of privacy, that's a transgression of the legislation, the privacy legislation. Also, if I haven't given them consent to do so, it's a transgression of the legislation, the POPI legislation. So I think that is a very important thing. And then the Act and the law requires POPIA of one to have a lawful basis for the processing of personal information. And I'm specifically talking to the information of those people that have not signed up for the Truecaller app. What is the basis that they can then work with and reflect and process the telephone numbers of the person that has never signed up for Truecaller? And that is a problem, because the law says I need to have a lawful basis. And what would be that lawful basis? And even if they say, but it's, the legitimate interest of everyone out there that's a member that signed up to the Truecaller app to actually know who's phoning them, there's still this third party out there that never signed up, that never gave their consent, and therefore that becomes problematic in terms of the legislation. And I think one of the things I've said, no one has ever asked me whether they can give my number to Truecaller. So why does Truecaller have my number? And this is a very interesting thing Truecaller does. It says, no, but if you sign up for the app for Truecaller, it's your responsibility then to make sure all your contacts are happy and comfortable with you sharing their information with us. Now, I don't know how many people have asked you whether they can give your number to Truecaller.
Zero. Nobody's asked me ever.
And I think that's part of the legal problem that we confronted with here. Truecaller says, this is not their understanding and they respect privacy. And Truecaller from a consumer perspective offers an excellent service. The reality, however, is they must offer that service within the bounds of the legislation. What are they doing with the information, and do they have a basis to then deal with the information?
Okay, so quickly, someone listening is rather infuriated by maybe what's revealed. What can they do about it?
They should approach the information regulator. That's why we've got an information regulator. The protection of personal information, or then POPIA, protects our privacy and our personal information, and the information regulator enforces that. And on their website, one can lodge a complaint, or you can ask for clarification or help and guidance. And that is what a person that's aggrieved should do.
Okay, and that's where we can leave it. Appreciate your time. Amor Burger-Smith, Head of Regulatory Practice at Worksman's Attorneys. There you are. Any thoughts on Truecaller and the POPIA Act and how it reveals your information to other people in spite of what has been said before? Well, you may have an opinion on that one there. I'll take further calls and comments on a range of issues. Anybody believes that the DA is correct in making the demands that they've made to the ANC because, all's free and fair in business and in life. That's how it goes, isn't it? You have a thought on that? You tell me. 5:30 is the news headlines with Greg.
Quick look at the headlines. The ANC says the recent leak by some parties on cabinet positions through the media is an act of bad faith that will not help the cause of any party. As the country awaits the announcement of the cabinet, Parliament says its presiding officers will consult with the President on the date of the opening of Parliament, and at least 21,000 children are estimated to be missing in Gaza. More on that story and other news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash near Van Buren Road. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Roodepoort has a crash before the N17 Soweto Highway exit. Solomon Mthlangu Drive westbound in Pretoria has a crash at Haymeadow Crescent, and Summit Road westbound in Midrand has delays at Blue Hills. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a crash just before the M25 Commercial Highway. The N2 northbound is queuing opposite Westwood Mall. The N3 westbound has a crash before Ashburton exit. The N11 in Newcastle has a crash between Downhawer exits. And Chris Hani Road westbound is queuing traffic at the N2 highway. In Limpopo on the N1, a tanker crashed reported before Nail Plaza, so you're asked to expect delays. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Plattekloofield. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. And Chapman's Peak Drive remains closed due to rockfalls. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
All I know, South Africa are in the semi-finals of the Cricket T20 World Cup. Who are they going to play? Tumi?
Well, they're going to find out tomorrow. However, there's an ongoing match between India and Australia in their third and final Super 8 match in the ongoing T20 World Cup. And Australia won the toss and they chose to bowl first. India currently sitting on 114 for 2 after 10 overs. And if Australia beat India, the Mitchell Marsh-led side will easily qualify for the semi-finals. However, a loss will put their semi-finals fate dependent on the result of Afghanistan versus Bangladesh game that is set to take place on the 25th of June. In football, referees who will be taking part in the COSAFA Cup from the 26th of June to the 7th of July have been put through the paces in Johannesburg over the last few days, including match officials who will be managing the video assistant referee system. VAR will be used from the semi-finals onwards in Gqeberha, but also a training tool for the whole competition, with every match having officials work the system behind the scenes to better equip themselves for the real thing. That includes some top match officials on the continent from the north to the side who will take advantage of this excellent opportunity to advance the training in the system as FIFA and CAF become more reliant on the technology. Now, match officials who are not up to speed with VAR will be left behind when it comes to major continental and global events in the future. Then in boxing, South Africa's most decorated fighter, Heki Butler, wants to see the issues around the welfare of boxers addressed even after he is retired. Butler has been watching the recent changes within the fraternity, including the appointment of a new board from the sidelines, and argues the instability has crippled the sport over the years.
That's also a thing that's been bad for boxing, all these board changes. But I feel the board that I have now is a good board. I'm still involved in boxing. I still train some normal clients. I train a few young kids that are amateur fighters. I help in their training. So I'll always be involved. I've done some commentating as well on the Boxing 5 promotions. There's actually a tournament coming up soon. And I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying still staying active. It's weird to actually sit next to the ring, talk about the guys fighting, and commentate on them fighting and not getting into the ring myself. But I am enjoying it. It's fun. I still love the sport, and I think I'll always be part of the sport.
In rugby, the Springbok squad announcement for their incoming series against Ireland and Portugal will be tomorrow after the time the team's flight from London to Johannesburg was cancelled yesterday. The national team should be on a flight now to arrive in the country tomorrow. From there on, the team is expected to begin preps from tomorrow for the opening test against Ireland in Pretoria next week. In tennis, Andy Murray has not made a decision on whether he'll be fit enough to make a planned Wimbledon farewell next week. The 37-year-old had a procedure on a back issue at the weekend, and Murray is set to retire later this year and hopes for a final appearance at Wimbledon, where he won 2 of his 3 Grand Slam titles, but he's also been selected for Great Britain at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. On that note, it's a wrap from my side. Tumi Nkgapele.
Okay, so we got you've done your goodbye, because yes. I mean that's very important. You know what happens when Absolutely. You don't get the blessings right. So the incoming tour, when are the dates? I mean, do you know it offhand?
Come again?
You did say the All Blacks incoming, and that comes up later. That's sold out already, so we can't even bother.
Yes, I know that Ireland is starting next weekend.
So that should be a cracker. Because Ireland were going on about they're the best rugby team in the world. Like, that's rather naive. The only team that's the best is the one that wins the World Cup. I mean, that's just the truth.
Absolutely.
And to be very honest, let me also say this. The 1999 Springbok team, cricket team, should have won the World Cup. So what? They didn't win it. You cannot talk now about how great Lance Klusener was. That's the reality. Who wins the big game on the big day? Finance and money issues next.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
We understand that Zizi Kodra, a former cabinet minister himself, of course, is going to be sworn in as an MP tomorrow. But he does face charges. On the record, he's appeared in court. Why is he still going to represent the ANC in Parliament?
Well, that's a matter that is currently under discussion. And at this point, I'll be hesitant to speak on this matter until such a time that the matter is clarified. But the step-aside policy of the ANC doesn't suggest that a person cannot serve as a backbencher, but a person cannot serve as a senior leader in the public domain. But as I say, this is uncharted waters, and the matter is receiving attention.
Mahlengi Bengu Motseri is the national spokesperson of the African National Congress.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about foamy, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely boss man. And she can earn up to 12.65% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app. Visit our website for more information. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credits provider. T's and C's apply.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? The Allure Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Not every grand idea turns out the way it was envisioned. You know what I'm talking about. That attempted upside-down kiss inspired by that superhero in the pouring rain that resulted in pneumonia and broken bones. That Tokyo drifting that ended up in an embarrassing explanation to your insurance. That online order going through your partner's phone. Hi, cut. Join Richard Hammond as he takes you on a journey of clips from the main show that highlights some of their boldest stunt attempts, a number of which didn't go as planned. Tune into Top Gear, Ambitious and Rubbish, Fridays at 9 p.m. to channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets now with the MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, I have no idea what you're going to talk about first, but everything has an impact. Politics and business overlaps.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Absolutely. Everything that happens out there does have some impact on the markets. And the markets have had a rather slow start to this week, a rather negative start to this week. I suppose a lot of that is being pinned on the fact that we've been waiting in anticipation for this new cabinet to be announced, and a lot of the implications around things like a finance minister and a foreign affairs minister and foreign policies and all of that start to weigh on sentiment at some point or another. But what do we have on the show coming up today? We are taking a look at Invicta results. They put up their full year's numbers. We're going to be speaking to the Invicta CEO around the company's performance. They've upped their dividend. They've increased their net asset value per share. Fairly consistent performance from the company. The share price hasn't moved too much, but there was almost 100 million rand in share buybacks that took place from the company's side. Then we take a look at the Shein London IPO listing. Typically when we see IPO listings, everybody sort of looks towards New York, some South African companies included. This time around, Shein again the Asian companies looking to list in London. We're going to look at the IPO valuations and what to make sense of there, particularly in the context of the e-commerce and online space. We know that Naspers and Prosus gave us results today as well. We're going to see if we can dip into those results as well and just try and unpack how the companies have been performing and what it means for the e-commerce space. Then we've got a conversation around the de-globalization, or so to speak, of economies and how the global factors are now affecting equity markets. We're going to speak to 91 around that and just get a sense of where they see value in terms of portfolios, where they see value in terms of equities, whether it's local, whether it's offshore, and how to sort of find that right balance. And then we've got a very special personal finance segment today. Next week, the 1st of July, the Monday, starts the 2-week period that SARS is going to be conducting auto assessments on taxpayers in South Africa. So for today's personal finance, we are looking at that. We're looking at auto assessments, what you need to know, what you need to prepare ahead of that, what you need to know once the auto assessment is sent to you, and how you navigate that entire conversation with you as well as with the receiver of revenue. So very, very important personal finance segment coming up from that perspective. But before we get to that, as I said, markets have had a weird reaction to not having a cabinet announcement at this point, with the the rand against the dollar losing some of the gains that we saw it have last week. And I'm joined once again by Henku Creer, who's been keeping an eye on the markets for us. He returns from a well-deserved break to give us a summary of what's been happening in the markets. Good evening, Henku. Lovely to speak to you again. While you were away, the rand briefly came below 18 rand. Now we're back at 18.17. What's been happening?
Yes, thank you, Jimmy. Good evening to you and Ashraf and Tumi, and good evening to all of our listeners. Yes, Jimmy, but I must say it was a green day overall, here by us as well as abroad. In the US, for example, the Dow Jones at this stage trading 1% stronger and the S&P 500 0.5% up. Similar story in Europe, where the FTSE 100 finished 0.8% up. The DAX gained 1% today. The CAC 40 in France finished 1.1% stronger. And then here by us, the JSE's all-share index finished 0.6% stronger and closed at a higher level of 80,263 points. So nice to see it break through that 80,000 point barrier again. The industrial index finished 1% stronger. The resources index a lot stronger today and finished 2.5% up. Earlier in the afternoon, it was even 3.5% stronger. But the financial index tried to pull all of this a bit downwards, and it finished 0.7% weaker. AB InBev gave a stellar performance today, as well as British American Tobacco. The two of them finished 3.9% stronger at the end of the day. Richmond and Anglo each gained 3.3% today, and Naspers and Prosus each finished 2.8% stronger. There was also Glencore finishing 2.5% up, followed by BHP, which gained 2% today. But the reason for this financial index finishing lower today was mainly because of this one big company, big bank on the JSE, First Rand, which lost 3% today. But back to the good news. Northern finished 6.5% stronger at the end of the day. Amplats and Alphamin each gained 5%, and RCL and Reinet each finished the day 3.5% stronger. Then on the negative side of things, the Foschini Group as well as Italtal, they each lost 4% today. Shoprite and Truworths each lost 3.5%, and Mr Price and Netcare as well as PEP finished the day 3% weaker. On the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,330 an ounce. Silver is trading at $29.60. Platinum sitting at $1,005, and palladium now trading at $978. The oil price is $85.70 a barrel. And then the exchange rate, yes, it was quite nice to see the rand trading below 18 rand last week, but now back to 18 rand 15 to the US dollar, then 23 rand and 3 cents to the pound, 19 rand 45 to the euro, and 12 rand 5 cents to the Australian dollar. Bitcoin is losing a little bit of value. The price of Bitcoin coming down and now sitting at $61,000. But Jimmy, that is still 1,140,000 rand for a Bitcoin. And Jimmy, that is how the markets performed today.
Still R1,001 for the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin price definitely not letting up there, holding its ground at the $60,000 level there. We're going to dig into these and other stories a little later on. Ashraf, we're going to cross back to you, but my parting thought to you is, interestingly enough, around the conversation you had with Tumi a little earlier on around the victories and where winning counts the most. On this day, exactly 29 years ago, the former Springbok captain Francois Pienaar would lift the Webb Ellis Trophy, starting the revolution that was South Africa winning 4 World Cups. So a very interesting thought that should come up on this day. But back to you.
Well, now I know. Appreciate it. Which also means, where was President Mandela on this day? I mean, maybe work that one out as well. Jimmy, great chatting to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. Right. In fact, let's get to other things that I want to just tell you. But by the way, people are tweeting, and I really love that you engage with me, even on the social media platforms. So Injabulo saying, I'm ready Monday to Friday. I cannot miss your show. Well, I'll tell you what, neither can I. I really appreciate it. Seriously, it's really great that you're part of the audience. And then Vo Rasta Makumela, as always, from Jamaica Street. We are together, he says, which is just great. And there's a nice picture from someone called Notorious Mabilani. Ashraf, afternoon. I'm listening to you from a small town called Aikenhook in Bushbuck Ridge in Mpumalanga, driving to my home village called Sikhakhula village. I should come there one day. We should maybe do a show from there. The National Pulse, great that you're using it. In fact, do the hashtag The National Pulse, just so that you know that for the future. Right, let's get to, before we get to our next guest, around DGs and what they really mean. So, we've been discussing the story of the DA, and the ANC has issued a statement responding, and this is what it says. The African National Congress notes with concern that some parties have been making outlandish and outrageous demands for specific cabinet positions in the media. Negotiating through leaking demands to the media is an act of bad faith, and this practice will not help the cause of any party. It's only the president who has the final say on the appointment of his cabinet. The GNU cannot be held as ransom by any single party. The people need a government to be established sooner rather than later. Okay, there's more. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I think you got the gist of what I've said, right? Okay, let's get now to speaking about DGs from Pam Yako, who's from the Association of Former DGs. I never knew that one existed. Pam, I appreciate your time. Hello.
Hello, Ashraf, and good afternoon to you and the listeners.
Good. I never realized there was like this, old club of DG. So now I know, right? And I think, one of the things we want to talk to you about is you probably know about the DA's request and others around the contracts of current DGs with a certain minister being the political head, and what happens to them when those departments have a new head, or perhaps even the departments get sort of closed off.
Okay. Thank you. Firstly, let me tell you a little bit about us, because, the difficulty is to go into, really wouldn't want as an association to go into the intricacies of what's happening in the negotiations, which is a political process. But we are an association of former DGs who have served and who were set up at a time that they were state captured, and we said we wanted to use our institutional memory to assist in terms of building the capacity of the state, advise where we can, and learn and work with current DGs in order to make sure that we, amongst other things, professionalize the public service and make sure that it's responsive to the needs of the communities. Just on the issue then of appointment of DGs, all right? You see, firstly, let's go. DGs are appointed by the president in terms of current legislation. Mm-hmm. And really, the journey that we've been walking in this country for the last couple of years is about not politicizing the appointment of DGs and follow due process. Of course, we can still look at improve who is on the panel, but we've all been saying the agency that is responsible for professionalizing the public service, which is the Public Service Commission, must play a key role, but they are presidential appointments.
Well, we certainly get that right now. What happens when things shift? Like, for example, as I said, you have a new minister, or sometimes the entire department sort of shuts down.
Okay. It shouldn't, Ashraf. That's the whole issue, because the problem we have in the past, whether you're dealing with state capture and you're dealing with anything else, we're saying strengthen institutions, professionalize the public service, appoint DGs and other senior officials and everybody else based on merit. Make sure that they are responsive to the departmental mandate and the government's mandate. And that government mandate is derived not from party manifestos, but there's a document which is called the Medium-Term Strategic Framework and the National Development Plan. And that should be the thing. And there's a strategic plan for each department, and there's an APP for each department. And that's what needs to guide what the Director General does, not a manifesto of a party or allegiance to a political party, because part of the journey that we have to walk is to depoliticize in the sense of party political, and move to a much more administrative independence, but also developmental states.
Okay, just the last thing, and I know you said you can and you can't talk about certain things. What do you feel, just tell me what you can say, about political parties outside the president suggesting that DGs who are contracted should step down and new DGs that would be suggested by other parties should take over?
Okay. There are laws in this country, Ashraf. The laws are you apply for a job, you get a contract, and that contract commits you and your employer, who is the president, to a particular thing. And let's stick to the laws of the country.
Okay, now we have it. Laws of the country. PM Yako, thanks for your time. From the Association of Former DGs. That must be a fascinating association, because the DGs are the engine room of departments. The CEOs, they run the show. I certainly want to eavesdrop into what they do sometime down the line. Let's talk further about youth and the implications and some of the big issues around young people in South Africa. Before I do that, Belinda, thanks for that WhatsApp. Really nice one, saying, Ashraf, listening to your show, The National Pulse, is the favorite part of my day. It's lifting my cooking experience now to a different level. Well, I'm delighted that in some way or the other that it can impact on your cooking experience. But listen in to the National Pulse, whether we're boiling every day or we're not. Either way, I think you get the point. Let's talk about the youth right after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's now chat to Aluwani Chokwe, who's the National Youth ICT Council spokesperson, as we wrap up today's show, focusing on the youth and ICT and how important those things are, right? So, Aluwani, I appreciate your time. You're live with the National Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you so much for having us today, and a happy Youth Month.
Much appreciated, right? So, I mean, I think the youth with regards to, ICT and information technology is a particularly important connection, and you clearly have a position on that, right?
Yes.
Go ahead and tell us, yeah.
Okay, so what we do as the Youth ICT Council, firstly, is that we are trying to empower the youth through digital transformation and to also be a driver of local innovation development with 3 pillars, namely research, ICT skills development, and ICT product development. We understand that this is also in line with the National Youth Policy and the Integrated Development Policy. Now, as the Youth ICT Council, we are also supporting efforts of enhancing the human capacity of ICT startups through enterprise development and entrepreneurship innovation trainings, which also aims to increase the participation of ICT youth in policy development activities, the coordination of funding opportunities for ICT startups, and also ICT SMEs to drive 4IR advocacy programs for South Africans, but particularly young people. We have undertaken a number of initiatives, such as the hackathons, whereby we tried to repurpose them according to what a particular province deals with. For instance, in Gauteng, we have recently hosted the Gauteng Innovate Hackathon under the theme Infrastructure Security in Local Government. Now, this was inspired by the explosion in the Johannesburg CBD, which emphasized the need for innovative infrastructure monitoring and security solutions. You will also notice that this is also in line with the Sustainable Development Goal 9, building resilient infrastructure and fostering innovation. But also because we try to factor the challenges that the various provinces deal with, we've also hosted a hackathon to find innovative ways to deal with the logistics problem, the logistics and transportation problem in KZN as a key cargo route. So we also took young people in a room when we said, here are technological components, here are computers, create a system or a component that will ensure that we reduce the accidents that happen on the N3. But another one that is coming up is going to be with a focus on agriculture. And this one will be hosted in Limpopo. You know that Limpopo is quite an agricultural province. Now, we will be using data sciences, analytics, and machine learning to ensure that we find innovative solutions to a number of areas around agriculture. And this includes your crop yield production, pest and disease detection, crop recommendation, soil health, livestock management. You know, we're always hearing about livestock going missing, and Limpopo is quite a rural area. So we are going to have young people using innovative solutions, trying to come up with particular solutions for whatever it is that is a challenge around the area of agriculture in Limpopo next month.
And just a quick one as we wrap up. Just what's your general thought on the state of ICT with regard to youth? Meaning, how accessible are youth connected to issues around IT and technology and other forms of communication? Just a quick response to that, yeah?
So South Africa is the most unequal society in the world, and this is also evident in a number of areas, especially their connection to the ICT. In fact, during COVID, we all bore the brunt of watching our fellow sisters and neighbors become educationally excluded when institutions and private schools conducted learning online during that global pandemic. So now we have also lauded the South African government, particularly the Department of Education, for introducing the robotics program in the syllabuses of grades R to 9 to say this will at least try to level the playing field, particularly in private in public schools. But our area of focus is also take this to rural South Africa, empower those that are outside of the margins. We always say that, yes, we are moving forward as a country, but reality is that South Africa and Africa as a whole has played a spectator role in all the epochs of the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. So for us to level the playing field, we take it to your rural communities, but importantly, we translate it in a language that people understand.
Shall we leave? Let's leave it at that, Aluwani. Thank you for your time. Aluwani Chokwe, who is the National Youth ICT Council spokesperson. Yes, as we wrap up, yes, one to consider.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I think with the current situation, ANC does no longer need DA in Parliament, more especially when it comes to the national situation or government, because they already have 40%, and anyone who will need to remove the president or the speaker, you need a 2/3 majority, and you cannot have the 2/3 majority without the ANC voting with you or ANC members joining you. So the DA is just in an impossible situation. They just have to work together with the ANC in order for them to gain that control again. Thank you.
There we are. Some may say the ANC is also in an impossible position. They can't get rid of the DA because that would be egg on their faces. All I can tell you now, the show, 3 hours, goodness, man, the pulse rate is racing because so much happens in terms of comments and commentary and the calls and your engagement, not just on air but even on social media. And I'll tell you what, all of it much appreciated. So thanks to the team that's put it all together as always, from Phineas to Tumi and Tebogo and Fusani, as well as Temba Dlamini. And then we've had our team together now with Greg Host, as always, part of the team. And it's his chance now. It's the news at 6.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Have a good evening further. ANC speaks out over media leaks and thousands of children missing in Gaza. The ANC says the recent leak by some parties on cabinet positions through the media is an act of